And we are now live. Your Worship, go ahead, please.
So call to order. I have a couple of brief announcements. This is Congenital Heart Disease Week, and I would like to begin by mentioning that February 7th to 14th was Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week. Congenital heart disease, or CHD, is the world's most common birth defect. Approximately 1 in 100 children are born with CHD. More than 50% of all children born with CHD will require at least one invasive surgery in their lifetime, and assessing care can be very, very challenging. Far fewer resources are allocated for the care of adult CHD patients than other cardiac patients. Wait times for clinical visits and surgical intervention are much longer than for other cardiac patients, and few receive follow-up care once they graduate from their pediatric clinic. We are happy to recognize this week by lighting the City Hall Tower red on February 7th, 2022. More information on congenital heart disease and how the Canadian Congenital Heart Alliance supports the CHD community can be found by visiting their website, cchaforlife.org. Second announcement is 2023 Canada Games. So this is pretty exciting. I'd also like to mention that this Thursday, February 17th, 2022, is the 2023 Canada Games Spirit Day. This initiative which can be celebrated anywhere, will help build excitement and kick off celebrations to mark 1 year out from the 2023 Canada Winter Games. And there are many ways to share the spirit of the 2023 Canada Winter Games. Local businesses, families, and schools are encouraged to get creative with how they participate. You can either wear green or blue, the official colors of the games, decorate storefront windows, dig out your vintage 1991 attire. That's that old green jacket, lime Ricky green. Get active outside and play your favorite winter sport, and much more. And participants can also share their spirit on social media. You can share posts on social media by tagging at 2023 Canada Games or using the hashtag CWG2023. This 1 year out celebration is a fantastic opportunity for residents of Charlottetown and Islanders to show Canadians what these games mean to us as we prepare to safely welcome Canadians to Charlottetown and Prince Edward Island for this early winter sporting event. Thank you for that, your patience. And just one other item. If you do leave the meeting, just indicate through chat or just to yell out that I'm leaving the meeting, because this is not a room setting. This is a virtual room setting. It's different than the chamber. So if you do want to move on or leave the meeting, just tell us or send a text through chat. Okay. Any declarations of conflict of interest? I think there are a couple. Julie McCabe, do you want to go first? Or Councillor McCabe?
You just had a chat saying she was having internet trouble.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rivard, do you have a conflict of interest under one of the items?
I do, Your Worship, under planning, number 6, the short-term rental strategies moving forward, as well as the second reading, I believe that was the short-term rental regulatory framework. I'll be declaring conflict on those two things. I believe that's it.
Councillor Tweel, you have something to declare conflict of interest on?
Yes, on the second reading, short-term rentals. That's all we'll be dealing with tonight in short-term rentals. Is that correct? Second reading. Can't hear you.
Sure, unmuted, Your Worship.
Councillor Tweel, there is a planning resolution number 6, a revised resolution to deal with the grace period. So you'll have to also declare conflict of interest on that too. Understood?
Understood.
And Councillor McCabe, can you hear us?
I can now. I was having some internet issues there a minute ago. Under 6.8, under economic development tourism, which I will provide the report, but I will remove myself from the discussion on the resolution as I do the education for the Islanders.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Any other conflict of interest? And yes, you can use your chat. I know some people are looking at it, and so is Tracy, or just indicate by raising your hand. Okay, approval of agenda. I think there's a request from Councillor Tweel to move your report, Councillor Tweel, to number 1. Is that what you want to do?
That's correct.
Any objections? Councillor McLeod, just 1 sec. Let me mute. Go ahead, sir.
Planning is was scheduled to go first. I think there's a lot of people probably online waiting for that. I just wondering, is it such importance that Councillor Tweel couldn't go number 2?
Councillor Tweel, number 2, all right?
Okay.
Is that all right with everybody? Number 2?
Your worship.
Yeah.
Your worship.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And it's okay, but it's there's a couple of things in number 1 that Councillor Tweel is in conflict for. So if it was more efficient, I mean, it makes no difference to me. I'm just thinking of the conflicts that he already has for that, but whatever works.
Councillor McLeod, I think you want to deal with your report, correct?
I would prefer to get it done, yes.
And because of others that may be of interest watching the first section, correct?
Yes.
Is that all right, guys? Number 2, Councillor Yankoff? Good? Okay. So 6.2, human resources, drops down to 3rd, and environments and sustainability, 6.9 becomes 6.2, and everything drops successively after that. All right? Good?
Yep.
Move for approval of the agenda?
Oh, your worship.
Yes?
Once we get to human resources, if we can just alter that, and there's one resolution in there that was not supposed to be in there. If we can remove resolution number 2 from the agenda and any discussion around it.
Thank you, Councillor Yankoff. I forgot about that. Any other items that have to be adjusted on the agenda? Oh, I can remind you that planning resolution number 6 was revised from what you received on Friday. Tracy McLean, our records management clerk, sent it out this morning. So you should have the revised planning resolution number 6. Okay.
So a motion should be in order, Your Worship, to amend as indicated.
Yeah. Moved by Councillor McKay. No problem. Councillor McKay. Councillor McLeod. All those in favor? Just raise your hand. Councillor Bob Duran, yay?
Yes, in favor.
Okay. And Deputy Mayor, are you there?
Yes.
No problem? Good. Okay. Adoption of previous draft minutes. Regular monthly meeting of January 10th, 2022. Special meetings of council, January 10th, January 17th, January 24th, January 27th, January 31st, and February 7th. Geez, we covered the whole month. And
Worship.
public meeting planning February 1st, 2022. Councillor Duffy?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I think there's a problem, Your Worship, with the minutes of January 31st in Section 3, approval of agenda. I think you're missing the mover of that particular resolution. It says motion was deferred, moved to defer 4C, 5-year sidewalk multi-use pathway plan to allow more time to collaborate with senior administration and Public Works Department on the matter. Seconded by Councillor Rivard. Motion lost 6-3. Moved by Councillor McLeod and seconded by Councillor Bernard that the agenda be approved. It was carried. The problem is you don't have a mover for the first one that was defeated 6-3. You have a seconder.
Councillor Rivard, who moved that?
I moved it.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
I moved it.
Thank you. So Councillor Tweel, can you, Tracy, can you just take note of that? Councillor Tweel moved that resolution.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Good. Let's go to the business arising out of the minutes. Seeing none. Okay. So we're looking at reports of committees. 6.1, I'm going to turn this over to the chairman, Planning, Heritage, and Development, Councillor Terry McLeod. Terry? Councillor McLeod?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Planning and Heritage Committee met on Friday, February the 4th. Copies of that meeting and the minutes are in your package. The Planning Board met on February the 7th and Wednesday, February the 9th, and copies of those reports and minutes are included in the package. Heritage Board Committee did not meet in January, therefore there are no minutes. The Design Review Board met on Monday, January 24th, and the copies of those reports and minutes are there. And the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee met on Tuesday, January 18th, and a copy of the Affordable Housing Committee minutes are included in the package as well. We have 6 proposed resolutions put forward tonight, Your Worship, and if all goes well, there should be 2 first readings and 1 second reading. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, and any questions or concerns, I'll try to answer.
Deputy Mayor Cody, I think you got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor McLeod. Just reading through your report there, short-term rentals. So, do we have regulations in place right now to regulate the short-term rental market?
What I'll do, we do under the tourism. We've had it for years, right? Under the Tourism Act. It's just that the province were handing out the permits and the municipal bylaw wasn't being adhered to. But if Alex wants to add any more, he can.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we, under the we had a definition of tourism home, and that's what is in your package this evening to integrate short-term rentals to elaborate on how we were formerly dealing with tourist homes, and your amendments this evening are dealing with putting more language in the tourist home provision of the zoning bylaw to make reference to that use. Thank you, Your Worship.
Your Worship? Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor McLeod. So we did have regulations in place. I guess it just begs the question, why weren't those regulations being enforced?
I guess I will thank you, Councillor, for that question in the follow-up. And I guess I'd be best to ask Alex to ask that question. It's a pretty long story, but the province oversees us, and it wasn't until just a couple of years ago that the Green Party made the province adhere to their rules and regulations to bring this forward. But Alex, if you wanted to explain that any easier.
Mr.
Okay,
Forrest?
thank you. Yep, thank you, Your Worship. What's been happening since short-term rentals is just a platform. It's always been a land use, and it's a land use that we have been regulating. So over the past at least 3 years, short-term rentals is becoming an issue in the city, and we have been discussing in the past with the province, and indicating the province was issuing licensing, but they weren't, those that were obtaining licenses weren't checking with the municipality to ensure that they were a permitted land use. So along the way, that the province changed their application form to indicate, it's up to the applicant when they gave their approval to get municipal approval. But again, the majority of the people did not come and seek an approval from us. So the we had regulations in place for some time. The other component of this is that in order to go after anybody for non-compliance for an STR, you need to have a scraping tool to be able to find them. And we've had that tool for a while. The province have just obtained that tool. So in order to enforce it, you need that scraping tool, which is host compliance. It's now Granicus. So in order to regulate this, this land use effectively, you need the tools in place to ensure that you know where they are, and to be able to pursue them if they were non-compliant. Thank you, Your Worship.
That's good.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I guess, and thank you, Alex, for that answer. It is.
What goes your day?
I guess it is a little hard, when we had the rules in place, they're not being enforced, and now to come about now to be in the situation where we're in now. I just one more point here, and we'll move on. But in the report, Councillor McLeod, it says that the province amended their tourism act in November, but they're not going to revoke any of the previously granted licenses. And I'm just wondering, I know we talked about grandfathering. I think it was brought up at the last committee meeting of yours.
And what time
has there been any further discussion on that after seeing what the province has done? I know you just finished saying that we follow the province's lead.
And then head out from there.
So it's easier for them to say there isn't, but because it doesn't directly affect them like it would the city.
So we'll have food for you guys.
I guess the long and short of it is that this is the reason why we're putting in this grace period, right? Is to allow the STR operators to get used to and understand what our STR bylaw is, and we'll work. Staff will work with them to bring them into appliance. So that's the idea here. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor McLeod. Yes. Mr. Forbes raised his hand. Did you want him to?
Yeah, he can finish off there for sure.
And then after Mr. Forbes, I have Councillor Bernard who raised his hand.
Okay.
Mr. Forbes?
Yeah, just following up on Councillor Cody's comments. The reference in the report that the province was not going to, once they brought in their new act, you've got to realize these approvals are going to be granted on an annual basis. So by the time the province brought in their regulations, they were not going to retroactively revoke any of those. So it was just the month of December that was going to be the end of the year. So they had conveyed to the city any new people that are going to apply after the regulation came into effect, which was only the month of December, they would have to comply. But those licenses had been issued for 2021, but they will be seeking confirmation from the city that all licenses comply in 2022. Just thought I'd clarify that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Deputy, you're okay with that?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Bernard, question to the chair? And then, you know what, Councillor Bernard, excuse me, Councillor Duffy was before you. Can you yield to Mr. Councillor Duffy? Councillor Duffy, go ahead. Sorry about that, sir. Go ahead.
Councillor Bernard can go ahead. That's no problem.
Oh, okay. Gentleman before a gentleman, okay?
Yeah, Mike, if you were first, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. No, go ahead.
If you were first, go ahead.
This won't take long. It's a question for Councillor McLeod. About a week or 10 days ago, there was an article in The Guardian that was talking about a package we have down with Minister Fox that he and his staff were going to do some work with, and the headline of the article said province hands ball back to the city. Fine, that's fairly clear. The first paragraph in the article itself says the provincial government wants Charlottetown City Council to resolve an issue with one of its disgruntled councillors. And the only other reference to the situation itself is made by one of the staff members down there who said the department continues to encourage municipal council members to find an appropriate resolution to continue serving the residents of Charlottetown. So, Your Worship, I'm a bit confused. The headline says one thing, the first paragraph basically says the other thing, and then the staff member says they're still considering the case down at their office. So my question is to Councillor McLeod, and the reason is to Councillor McLeod, he's been missing a committee member for a year and a half. It's gone on too long. It's sitting down there. I don't know if they're working on it and going to report, or is it back to us, as the headline says, province hands ball back to city. That's fairly clear. Anyway, I was just wondering, Councillor McLeod, do we have any update? Because we want to clear it up. A year and a half is too long for this to be lagging.
Councillor McLeod?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you for your question. I think some of the parts in the story, Councillor Duffy, was from a previous release that the government had made, and I think it's kind of, some of it went ahead, some of it went backwards, so I don't think it's a true story. I did talk to Mr. Kelly today, and as far as we know, it's still in the hands of the government, and we are waiting word. So
Thank you.
that's where it's at.
Could someone make a phone call tomorrow morning down to them and just simply ask them, are they doing it or are we doing it? And that's all we need to know.
Councillor Duffy, when that, sorry, Councillor McLeod, but when that news release came out last week, I did ask Mr. Kelly if he received a correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Fisheries. He didn't, I didn't, and I believe the reporter from The Guardian that reported the issue just phoned down. Maybe he just made a cold call. Councillor Tweel, let's just give her your thoughts, sir.
Councillor, or Your Worship, for the last year and a half, I've made numerous attempts to be removed from this particular committee. I did bring up back, I think it was November the 29th, with respect to the participation of Councillor Mike Duffy, who's a member of the advisory committee. And I stated at the time I felt quite strongly he's in a conflict of interest, because every time I bring the issue up or make a request to the advisory committee, Councillor Duffy would be the first one to say no. So I find it quite ironic that he raises this issue tonight, but yet I've yet to receive a written legal opinion about his participation on the advisory committee when he continues to say no, when I made requests formally and informally, and he's in a blatant conflict of interest. And I go a step further, Your Worship. I think it's abuse of privilege and power. Mr. Mayor, when am I getting my legal opinion on the involvement of Councillor Duffy on the advisory committee? Enough is enough of this, this continuation of just trying to embarrass me in the public. He's done it for the last year and a half. I can tell you, citizens of this community are sick and tired of this hatchet job. When is enough is enough? Mr. Mayor, when is this going to be dealt with?
Councillor Tweel, we have Tina Lococo and Mr. Kelly both as part of this meeting. We'll follow up. Your request has been made, and one of the two will follow up on it. Thank you. Councillor Duffy? Nope, on mute, on mute, on mute.
The mouse was hiding. Could I ask Councillor Yankoff, who is the chair of the CAC, if she has found me to be exactly what Councillor Tweel is accusing me of, just in short terms, at the meetings?
Councillor Yankoff?
I'd like to say point of order at this point. I don't know if this is the appropriate time before we've even started our meeting to have these discussions. I think Councillor Tweel's asked for something. I think the discussion really should take place maybe in a more appropriate setting.
Yeah. And Councillor McCabe, I believe that Councillor Duffy raised the issue because the planning issue involves the councillor that has been referred to. That's why he brought it up in this report. It could have come up in CAC. We'll just, no, Councillor Tweel, we're going to just wrap it up with some words or comment from the chair of the Council Advisory Committee, Councillor Alana Yankoff. Councillor Yankoff?
Well, just to circle back to what Julie said, I don't know if there's anything appropriate that I have to say. I mean, I can say that the question that was asked by Councillor Tweel or any of that sort of discussion has never once been in a discussion. No one has ever discussed in Council Advisory that Councillor Duffy has shown any whatever those words were. So, you know, I just, you know what? I don't even know what else was to be said because I'm not sure how far we're supposed to go with this because I don't have any other information.
Thank you. And no, Councillor Tweel, I'm going to go with her.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. No.
No.
Mr. Mayor, I raised this.
No, Councillor Tweel. Councillor Twill, she didn't
I
finish.
start this. I didn't start it, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, she didn't finish. Hey, Councillor Yankoff, finish up.
I finish up by, I can refer this to the staff person who oversees council advisory, and perhaps they can speak to this. This is a small committee that suggests committees, and that's all our role is.
Okay, Councillor Twill, we're going to move on. It's been given over to the CAO and Deputy
Mr. Mayor, when is the hatchet job going to stop?
Did I just tell you, Councillor Twill, did I just say that it's been referred to?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor McLeod, I'm going to ask Councillor Bernard to get his question on the floor. Councillor Bernard?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's more of a clarification than anything. One, I thought when we passed first reading, it was because of amendments that had to be made to be able to regulate the short-term rental accommodations in the city. So when we all passed the first reading, this was for the amendments, very similar to what we see here in resolution number 6. And I would have expected, and maybe, maybe I'm wrong here. Normally what I would have thought was we've had our public meetings, and I would have thought that we would have had a meeting as council, and Robert Zilke would have went over all the input that was given at the public meetings, and then give the recommendation that they're making, and let us discuss it, and then it would come as a resolution. I'm seeing here that it's now, it's not part of number 6 resolution, but in the back of the binder, it seems to be part of the second reading, where there's no discussion on now. And I'm kind of wondering, I have no problem passing the resolution and to amend the official plan so development bylaw to outline where these operations can legally operate within the city and so on. So there's changes that have to be made in our official plan and zoning development bylaw so we can enforce this. But I do think that council needs to have Robert needs to make a presentation to council on all the information that was collected, because it just looks to me like we're not taking in the advice we've gotten from the people at the public meetings. And so that, to me, that there's a discussion needs to be had by our staff, recommendations need to be made, we need to have that discussion. Like right now, we're in second reading and there's no discussion. So I don't know, Your Worship, that's just a comment between you and to the chair. To me, I have no problem with the resolution of Planning 6 to give the city the powers that they need to be able to regulate short-term rentals. And I just think we need to have a conversation, an open meeting conversation with council and a presentation from Robert on all the information that was gathered and what are the recommendations.
Councillor Bernard, the
Yes.
report that you received last month was a culmination of almost 2.5 years' work.
Yeah, 271 pages.
Yeah. And
that we were told we would have discussion on.
We had 3 public consultations starting back in June 19th, 2019. We had 2 in 2021, and the last one, November 9th, it was clearly explained that we were discussing option 1 as going forward. Councillor McLeod, you want to add, and I could add maybe Councillor.
So, Your Worship, just on the point, if I could, there are 2 members of council who declared conflict on this, and that item is on the discussion paper for item number 6. So either they have to leave at this time and then come back, or we can deal with that issue at number 6 and get into that discussion. That's options for council, but there are 2 members who are in conflict with this discussion, Your Worship.
Good point. Good point. What do you want to do, Councillor McLeod? No, you're on mute. You're on mute.
And I understand, Your Worship, that.
Just 1 second, Councillor.
Yeah,
Councillor McLeod.
I think it'd be best if I answer number 6 when we get to the actual report. Before we get into it, I'll answer Councillor Bernard's question.
Good point.
Okay.
The other question I had, Councillor McLeod, I know we talked about this briefly a couple of times. I'm just wondering, the remote controlled hard pool covers. I think that wasn't in the minutes, so is that still to come to another meeting?
Right, so the minutes that you have, so the planning committee hasn't met since it was brought up at our last meeting. So it's gonna go to the planning committee first, and then, Alex will present all the past that he has on it, and then we'll move forward from there, where we'll go to planning board and then on to council.
Right on, thank you. Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
you're welcome.
There's Councillor Duran, your worship, has his hand up here too, your
I
worship.
see his hand up. Councillor Duran?
Thank you, Worship. I'll wait till we get to resolution number 6. That's what it was regarding, so I can wait. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLeod, are you ready to go with your resolutions?
Yes, Mr. Kelly, if he wants to read number 1, we'll be all set to go.
Yes, your worship.
Do you want to read it, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, your worship. Moved by Councillor McLeod, second by Councillor McCabe, that the major variance request to reduce the required lot frontage for a 3-unit apartment building from 34.8 feet to approximately 27 feet, and reduce the required side yard setback from 2.25 feet side yard setback of an existing building on the abutting property to approximately 1.75 feet in order to permit a new 3-story apartment building containing 3 dwelling units at 231 Richmond Street, PID number 340703, be approved subject to the following conditions. 1. Design Review Board reviews and accepts proposed exterior design. 2. Prior to demolition of existing dwelling, the owner obtains a demolition permit and submits a fire safety plan for review and acceptance by the fire department. I believe that is it, your worship.
Okay. Question?
Question called.
Question called. Okay. All those in favor, please put up your hands. Okay, and I don't see Councillor Duran. Are you, your hand up, Councillor Duran?
In favor.
Jason's hand's up. Councillor Twiley, your hand up. Is your hand up? Twiley's, yep, 10-0. Go to the next one, sir.
Yes, your worship. Moved by Councillor McLeod, second by Councillor McCabe, that the request to reduce the lot frontage from 59.1 feet to 25 feet for a portion of the property at 351 North River Road, PID number 1014224 and 373415, in order to create a flag lot under section 46.12.3 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, be approved, subject to a site plan delineation, delineating the wetland and the final pin survey plan being provided, confirming the 6-foot side setback for the existing dwelling, your worship.
Okay. Councillor Ramsey, you got a question on that, sir? On mute there,
You have to unmute Councillor Ramsey.
Councillor Ramsey.
How's that?
Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, I was just reading my binder all weekend, and I went over that one section 2 or 3 times, and there is a wetland down there and everything, so there's nothing going to be, they can't do a thing until they get the proper wording back from that, correct?
That is correct, Councillor Ramsey.
Yeah, because there is a wetland, and they're basically just looking for a driveway. Am I right, Councillor McLeod?
Yes, it is, and the positioning of the lot will depend on the wetland and how much of the property it takes up.
And that's a single dwelling
Yes.
is what they're looking to build?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because one other time, a couple months ago, they wanted to use our free through there off of Madison Avenue, but we decided against that.
Yes, we did, and that's still in play.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Worship.
Councillor Bernard.
Councillor McLeod,
Yes, sir.
do you know on this particular property, was there any recommendation from planning to send some of the, set aside some land for a pathway along there?
There
Stop and use the water there?
Yeah, there is a piece of city property that goes along the subdivision down to the water there that will border this property that we're referring to tonight, and that will stay in place.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bernard, that was set up way back in 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, but I don't think we had access to the land going along to continue with a walkway, pathway. And it was missed in the subdivision before that.
But
So
it's
this
there
can
now.
still continue on to, Brighton Road.
Yeah,
Or,
it's
not
there
Brighton
now,
Road.
correct,
Revoke.
Councillor McLeod?
Yes.
So it's part of this too then.
Question? Question called?
Question called.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Councillor Rivard, yay. Okay, Councillor Wheel, good. And I have Councillor McLeod, Councillor Duran, and Deputy Mayor waving their hands. Thank you. Next one, sir.
Yes, Your Worship, moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor McCabe, that the major variance request to re-establish the non-conforming use, i.e. automobile service station, on the subject property identified as 184 Great George Street, PID 346312, be approved.
Any questions? So this is the old Codmore's Ultramar.
Yes, it is.
Councillor Duffy, comments, question? On mute?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was going to look this up myself, but it slipped my mind. What are the stipulations for non-conforming use when the time span that the non-conforming use has to be taken up by someone else and continued on? Is it 6 months or 2 years or 5 years or?
It is 6 months, I believe, but I will let staff answer that question just to make sure.
Yeah.
Alex.
Mr. Forbes?
Your Worship, to Councillor Duffy, yes, it is 6 months. In regard to this particular project, they had a lot of the approvals in place. They need provincial approvals for the Department of Environment, but because of COVID, this thing got slowed down.
Yeah.
So, and then knocked them into the non-conforming status, but they were clearly trying to move in the direction they were moving, but they were just delayed because of the COVID situation. But the time frame is 6 months. Thank you.
Yeah, because it was 2 months, 2 years this month since that gas station operated. Maybe a little less than 2 years, but certainly an extent greater than 6 months. But that's thank you.
Councillor Ramsey?
The non-conforming use, could somebody refresh my brain on that again? What could that be used for?
Alex, would you like to answer that one, please?
Well, a non-conforming use, it's just a use that's historically existed for a long time, and then over the years, the zoning changes on the property, and then if they cease the use, they have 6 months, and then after the 6 month period, then they lose the use because it's determined to be non-conforming. It doesn't fit with the current zoning. But in most cases, it's very, very few non-conforming uses disappear. They do come back periodically and ask to be re-established. And unless there was some egregious reason not to reapprove this, there's mechanisms in the zoning bylaw for under the variance process to reestablish a non-conforming use. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, and I just would like to add that I think this is a wonderful project, Your Worship, especially for Great George Street in that area. I think it'll be it's well needed, and I think it'll make the avenue look or Great George Street look much more brighter and vibrant than the street it is. Thank you.
Plus, lost a lot of free parking that was going on for a few months or more.
Yeah, once they found out, up went the fence.
They put up the barriers. Okay, question?
The question's called.
Good. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, Councillor Duran and Deputy Mayor. Okay, good. 10-0. Mr. Kelly, the next
Yes, Your Worship.
resolution.
Your Worship, moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor McCabe, that the request to amend Appendix G, the zoning map of the zoning development bylaw, from the low-density residential R2 zone to the narrow single-detached residential R1N zone for 3 First Street, PID 276501, in order to permit the subdivision of the subject property into 2 separate lots, with Lot 21-2 occupied by existing single-detached dwelling, and Lot 21-1 occupied by proposed new single-detached dwelling, be approved.
Questions called.
Questions called, great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Councillor Duran? Okay, 10-0. Next one, sir.
Yes,
Thank
Your Worship, moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe, that the request to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the official plan from low density residential to institutional, and amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw from single detached residential R1L zone to the institutional zone for the property located at 85 Malpeck Road, PID 388181, be approved, subject to the lot consolidation of 85 Malpeck Road, PID 388181, and 73 Malpeck Road, PID 388173.
Okay,
Questions called.
no, Deputy Mayor Cody has his hand up. Deputy Mayor?
No, sorry, Your Worship, that was for the last vote. Sorry about that.
I thought maybe you were waving at Kevin.
Yes. Hi, Jake.
Okay,
Hey.
call a question. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 10-0 again. So on this resolution, planning resolution number 6, I will ask Councillors Rivard and Tweel to remove themselves from the meeting. And one of us will send you a text or we'll get back to you. Okay? Okay. Mr. Kelly, can you read the next resolution?
1 second, please, Your Worship.
Just a minute, Your Worship.
Yes, sir.
Because there's no discussing after we read it, I probably should answer Council Bernard's question. And Bobby and Councillor Duran had a question too, but I don't know if that pertains to the, or should I? I don't know.
On this issue, this is a first reading, so there is debate and discussion, but the debate and discussion will be focused on the grace period, because if you read the resolution, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hooley or Alex, but the debate should be focused on the grace period is needed prior to the STR amendments coming into full force and effect. Is that right, Mr. Hooley?
That's correct. The amendment has to be dealt with first. Either it's approved or it's not approved, and then you go to second reading.
Yeah. So we're just focusing. Yeah, I know. Cap. We're just focusing on the grace period in this for this motion.
Once we get to it, yeah.
Alex, did you have something to say?
No, I think it's fairly, or I would say fairly straightforward, but it's the grace period is, if you want to allow the operators to transition for 1 year until the regulations come into place, that provision needs to be integrated into the bylaw that you granted first reading last month. And if you integrate it in, then we can proceed, and STR operators, whether they conform or not, in 2022 will be granted permission to continue, but they, if they cannot meet the new bylaw regulations in March of 2023, they will have to discontinue their operations. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Yankoff, did you have your hand up?
I did, but then I put it back down because my question was answered. Thank you.
Councillor Bernard, Councillor Duran has got his hand up, and then I'll come to you. Councillor Duran?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to agree with Councillor Bernard on this one. Like last month, we passed amendments about the secondary suites and garden suites and so forth. And we were just putting that in place, which I certainly agree upon. Now, this resolution, I'm like Councillor Bernard said, we should have a discussion. There was 5 options. We didn't sit down as a council and discuss which one we were going ahead with. This comes out, and I know it's a lot of information. I'm just wanting to have the discussion with council so we can kind of form what we'd like to see. This resolution is there's a lot of information in it that we just didn't have the time to discuss. And, I was kind of hoping that we would discuss it before we put all this stuff in place. I mean, we've been talking about it for 2 years now, but this comes out and, we didn't have a formal discussion on it. So I'd just like to even put it away for a month and see what we can do.
But Councillor Duran, just to set the record straight, this resolution, okay, it's not on the floor yet, but it's only about the grace period. Now, it's first reading, but the other resolution that is going into second reading, there's no debate and there's no discussion, because by convention since 1855, council previous to the MGA had 3 readings, and the third reading there was no debate or discussion. Now we have 2 readings. So by convention we've always been following that path, and if we set a precedent by breaking that convention, that means in the future second reading can have discussion and debate. So if you want to defer this resolution, I'm going to ask Mr. Hooley or Councillor MacLeod or Mr. Forbes. We still have to go to the second reading on the resolution that was read the first time in the last meeting. Is that correct?
Your Worship?
Yeah, just one second. Is that correct, Mr. Forbes, Mr. Hooley?
Your Worship.
I can take that question. So a motion you could defer second reading. That is possible. Like a motion, you can defer this amendment. You could defer the second reading. So that's if that's the will of council.
But just again, if you defer it, the second reading doesn't permit any debate or discussion. So what are you deferring for?
Correct. When you come back in a month, I'm not sure what it would accomplish. You'd have to have a plan as to what you're going to do in the interval that might satisfy what we've heard from Councillor Bernard and Councillor
Councillor
Duran.
Yeah, Councillor Duran. Yes, two have spoken.
So if I may summarize a little bit, so Councillor Bernard and Councillor Duran are both looking for an opportunity to discuss. So if we were to defer this, is that opportunity there under the MGA? Like, can we sit down and actually have a discussion on this?
Sure we can.
Normally that would have happened at first reading.
Right.
Yeah.
But first reading's already gone.
Can I speak?
Yeah, just one. Okay. Councillor Bernard.
Thank you. So, and this is the problem that I'm having, and I think other councillors will too. When this came up last month, we were told if there was 271 pages, there's a lot of information here. We're just going to do first reading on the amendments to be able to regulate short-term rental accommodation within the city. And so, that's fine. And then on this resolution that has to do with the second reading, there's not a thing on there that talks about what option we're going with. Only when you go to the back page and you find part of the second reading is the policy to ensure, I guess it's option 1, doesn't say option 1, and that's fine too. All I'm saying is we're missing a step here, and I think there was no discussion last month because everybody was told and assumed, and what we've seen here is what's on the resolution. All the amendments that need to be made so the STR regulations can be enforced. So that wasn't on what option we're going to pick. And for me, I'm looking at all the people that spoke, and we never had our staff person do a presentation to council to say, here's why they're making this particular recommendation, whatever recommendation that is. That's a missing step. So all I'm asking for, I got no problem passing the resolution, and you know what? If you can delay second reading, and we can have that meeting and have Robert come in and do his presentation to council, and council ask questions, and then move on to second reading. That's fine.
So at the
way to do it, but it's up to council.
At the October meeting, at the October 12th meeting, we moved a resolution to go to a public consultation on the first option. That it says principal residence, and then when we went to the meeting on November 9th at the Confederation Center, if you read the minutes from that meeting that were in last month's package, Robert Zilke presented his report, the recommendation, because we had to go back to the public with a recommendation. We couldn't do that in May because we were doing that was public information session. So after the public information session in May and up until November 9th, we come back with option 1. And Robert Zilk said it in his opening that this is on principal residence, which is option number 1. And
I understand all that, Your Worship. So we gathered information on what the staff person's recommendation was.
Right.
We got feedback from the public.
Right.
Okay. So now, after all that feedback, I'd like to know what the staff person is suggesting now. We didn't have that step. That's all. Nothing may change, but we never had that conversation with council. And last month, my perception was, and I don't know if anybody else, my perception was, we're going to be discussing this 271-page document. This is to let staff start moving ahead with the framework, and we were going to have this discussion. We never had it, and that's my point. That's all.
Okay. Again, on a point of order, and this is a procedural issue, Councillor McLeod, at last month's meeting, said that, look, do you need more time? Do you have any questions? And I recall Mr. Forbes asking, I'm here for any questions. No questions were asked. I can tell you that we had 3 public consultations on it. And the last
question asked, because it was just the amendments that were outlined for us. It was just the amendments.
But those amendments, if you read them, on the definition, it talks about principal residence. That is principal resident under option number 1. Or it could be option 2.
I'm going to leave it, Your Worship, for other councils. If you know they feel that that's the case, then that's fine.
I just feel that we have to keep moving. Councillor Duffy. Unmute.
Thank you, Your Worship. When did the option, and why did the option go from number 3, option 3, to option 1? That's what I don't remember, if I ever knew.
Sir, if you look at your package back in October, when we went to Councillor Duffy, we rescinded option 4 because Robert Zilk back in March of 2020 recommended 3. We went with 4. And then when we had our October meeting, October 12th, at that October 12th meeting, in the resolution to go to the public consultation, we rescinded option 4.
Okay. The problem is, as I see it, I agree with Councillor Durong and agree with Councillor Bernard. We've done a lot of listening, we've done a lot of reading, but we haven't done much talking amongst each other, and communication is very important. I don't know what, for example, Jason Cody thinks, or what Greg Rivard thinks, or what Councillor Bernard thinks. Like, we haven't had, and if it has to be, so we need a session to communicate, and if it has to be the open session, so be it. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor McLeod, excuse me for interrupting, but if we defeat the second reading, that means the process starts over. We have to, and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, that means we have to look at all the options again, decide which one we want to go to a public consultation. That's what we did on November 9th. We went to the public consultation on option number 1. I know that's in the resolution, guys. I
think our lawyer said that we could put the second reading on pause. We're not delaying anything here. We could have a meeting in a week.
But
unless Robert's not ready. But I mean, we're not changing anything.
No. If we defer this onto the second reading, that means going forward, if someone says, oh no, I want to speak on this issue, and I can't say in the future, no, you can't, because what this opens is that the convention from 1855 to today, to 2022, has allowed us to have second reading, or previous to that third reading, no debate, no discussion. So this opens the door.
Your Worship, that's not, what we're asking for here is to have Robert Zilke do a presentation to council. We can pause the second reading, have the presentation, and then it goes back to council for second reading after that. There doesn't need to be a discussion, because we would have already had that discussion when Robert gives his presentation.
But Councillor Bernard, let me make it clear again. This is suspending the second reading, which allows for discussion, and on the second reading, there's to be no debate, no discussion. Now, if we break from that, I'm just making it very clear to you, if a councillor says on second reading, no, I have a comment, and someone says, no, there's no debate or discussion, we can't say that anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hooley.
It would be the vote. I mean, let's say you do as Councillor Bernard is suggesting. There's a motion. If a motion to defer is approved this evening, then you can defer a second reading. You can defer the grace period resolution if you so desire. In the interval, you have your meeting. When you come back, I agree with His Worship. There's no debate. It's going to be like an up and down vote. Either you're for it or you're against it. So it either carries at second reading or it's defeated, depending on what I guess depending, Councillor Bernard, if you're concerned, if any concerns you have or any information you feel you need is not obtained at that information session with Mr. Zilke, who's the author of these amendments, then you would still be voting against approval of second reading, and somebody who's satisfied would vote in favor of second reading and the majority rules.
Yeah, and I think you had said that earlier, David, and that's all I'm asking for is if we have if we defer the motion and we have the meeting and Robert does his presentation, any questions we have will be asked at that point. Then when it goes back to second reading, there doesn't need to be any questions asked. They would have been already asked when he does his presentation. I just think it's a step missing. It doesn't change how I'm going to be voting, but I mean, I think there's a step missing there, and I think to make it consistent, you want to have that meeting. So.
Okay, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, and thank you. And I agree. I've been fortunate enough to be part of this whole process. But my question, and maybe it's for David Hooley through the chair, but if we have this step, because we were able to hear the presentation in planning board and ask lots of questions, if Robert was able to come into council, I agree that we wouldn't be able to have debate. But David, would we be able to, if there was something missing at that point, you could still propose an amendment to the second reading again at that point if they wanted something changed a little bit, could you not?
It would depend entirely on the nature of the amendment. We have an amendment before you tonight, which is to delay the coming into effect for a year, for a grace period, okay? That doesn't change the substantive provisions of option one. They're the same text amendments as were advertised back in October. So that's fine. But if, as a result of the discussion, council decides it wants to go back to option 3 or option 4 or whatever, that would require starting the process all over again. You'd have to be, because there's a different set. Understand this, like the set of amendments that Robert drafted are geared to option 1 and the UPGO McGill study. There would be a different set of text amendments to go with option 2 and option 3 and option 4 and any variations thereon. So if after this information session, that's where your mind was at, then you're back to square one. You can do it. There's nothing says you certainly can. Council certainly has the authority to not adopt this amendment if that's your desire. But you'd have to start the process over again.
All over.
Thank you.
Councillor McCabe, good. Okay. So we do have the resolution. Councillor McLeod, do we want Mr. Kelly to read the resolution? Which is.
So I just have one more question, Your Worship.
Yeah. I think we should have, Councillor Bernard, I think we should have the resolution on the floor.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. On the resolution, so does the resolution we're reading, in the resolution, it just talks about the amendments. So these operations, so we have staff that can be able to amend the official bylaw, to amend the official plan and the zoning bylaw to outline what these operations can legally or not legally operate. So that resolution, what you're telling me is considered the second reading, where we have another page here that talks about the second reading. So if you're deferring the second reading, are we deferring this resolution? Because I've never seen a resolution as a second reading.
No. To clarify, Alex, sorry, Councillor McLeod, do you want to clarify, or do you want to?
I'm just saying. So there's two things we were going to do here this evening, and one is to make an amendment to the first reading, and then once that is passed, then we would vote on the second reading.
Right.
And the idea behind that, the whole idea is to take away all those other amendments, all the long-term part that the staff have to do as far as regulations and fees and all that part of it. We're just tonight only going to deal, what the idea was to deal with the amendment, saying that we're going to give a year's grace, where before we were saying we were going to give it to January the 10th, but under our past meeting, it was made clear that we did say a year. So we're making this amendment to say that the STR folks will have a year. And then once we get that out of the way, then we can then vote on the second resolution.
Okay. Just,
Second
Councillor
reading.
Bernard, just
But-
one second. Go ahead, Councillor McLeod.
No, I'm good. Good, thank you.
David, do you want to add something?
So then,
Yeah, perhaps I should, just so that we don't get messed up in our procedure here.
Yeah.
So council has a couple of choices here. You can deal with the proposed amendment to be added at second reading, which is to create the grace period. You can either approve or deny that this evening, or you can, if a motion to defer carries, you can defer it. So you could, let's say you could approve the grace period as part and parcel of the STR amendments, okay? And then when it comes, after that's finished and it comes up for second reading, you could move to defer the second reading to the March meeting, and in the interval, hold the information session you're talking about if that was the will of council.
Okay.
so
That's Bernard.
you could pass this,
This
where the
amendment.
one, you could pass that amendment, and then the second reading can be deferred
Right.
until we have a presentation from Robert, and then we can pass the second reading after that.
Right. Or both can be deferred as council may wish.
Yeah, I'm okay with the addition.
As chair, I would like to see the amendment go through for sure, simply because from the outset, we the affordable housing, they recommended a year, so we'd like to stay with that 1 year. I think that was some appropriate. So that amendment we should, and then if someone wants to put a motion to defer, go to it.
Okay.
Councillor McLeod, just as you said, or I think Mr. Hooley, is that if we want to change the option, that means the whole process starts over. So
Back
keep
to a
that in
public
mind.
meeting, the whole 9 yards.
And any meetings going forward for information purposes or whatever, or for whatever reason, they will all have to be open meetings,
Yeah,
because
I
this
would
is
think
an
so.
open.
Yeah.
Correct.
It should be.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's looking at changing as much as they just need to hear from staff the full. It's one thing to read it; it's another thing to hear it. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Cody, did you have your hand up, or Councillor Duran?
I'd just like to speak one more time, Your Worship. I voted for the amendments last month, and I understood them. There are a lot of housekeeping items. That's what I wanted, or I understood that were coming, and that's why I voted for it. And I have no problem do the second reading for those amendments. But before we vote on this resolution, I'd like to have that discussion. I wouldn't, if you want to read second reading, I'd be for that, but this one I'd like to defer. So resolution until we have a conversation. That's just
Good point, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Duran, because this is first reading, and what you're saying is defer the first reading of planning resolution number 6, and that will allow us to have the open meeting with Mr. Zilke. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
So do you want to move to defer this resolution?
Sure, yes, I'd be interested in doing that.
So,
Just so we can have a conversation.
Just so Bobby's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. I think he's going down the wrong road. This amendment to go with the year is all this one is. It's the second reading that you want to defer if Councilor Duran wants to have a discussion on it. It's not this resolution.
yeah.
So that's what Bobby was saying.
Yeah, Councillor Duran.
This resolution, that's not going to solve the problem.
No, just one second. Mr. Hooley, what's your recommendation?
My recommendation would be that the resolution to add a grace period be carried, because if it goes to second reading, and if that's going to become, if the majority of council support that, then the grace period is an essential component. I think more so, at least equally from the point of view of the city. You can't have those enacted into law and not have a licensing or registration bylaw for STRs and not have an effective enforcement bylaw. So the city has its reasons why it needs that grace period. It's also, I think, in fairness to the STR operators, there's been a lot of proposals thrown around for the last 2 or 3 years. Now they know specifically what's coming. They've got a year to adjust. So it works for the STR operators, it's fair to them, and it also allows the city the time it needs to adopt these other two bylaws in the interval and to gear up for 2023. So
And-
it's an essential part of it. It's like a horse and a carriage.
And just to clarify, Your Worship, if I could also, just to remind of the process, this amendment will require 2 separate meetings of council to be added to the bylaw, Your Worship. So that is also a step that needs to be factored in here as well.
No, if we have first reading tonight
Yes, Your Worship.
on this planning resolution number 6.
Right, it will require another one too,
The
Your Worship.
discussion is deferred on the second reading of what was passed first reading last month. We could, after we discuss it or listen to information given to us by planning staff, that we could do both readings.
That is correct, Your Worship, but it will require 2 readings as well.
So, Councillor MacLeod, what do you wish to do?
I think the best bet is to approve the amendment to the first reading so that it provides the grace period, right? And then before we go into second reading, if someone on council wants to make a motion to defer, then that'd be the time to do it. We'll go, and if it gets deferred, then we'll go to an open session meeting with Robert Zilke and come back here in a month.
Or Mr. Kelly, do we have to defer, or we just don't do the second reading?
You need to, it's already on the agenda, Your Worship, so just to keep things clean, you should probably defer until next month, just to keep things clean.
Defer both?
It depends if you want to defer both, or if you want to read one and then defer the second, Your Worship. Those will come back again to council for discussion after council gets a chance to meet and have further discussion, Your Worship.
Okay, so let's read planning resolution number 6.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe. Whereas the City of Charlottetown intends to regulate short-term rental accommodation operators within the city, and whereas at its regular meeting on January 10th, 2022, Council gave first reading to a package of amendments to the official plan and the zoning and development bylaw respecting regulation of short-term rentals, the STR amendments. And whereas it has been determined that a grace period is needed prior to the STR amendments coming into full force and effect, be it therefore resolved as follows. 1. The STR amendments to the official plan and zoning and development bylaw bylaw given first reading by council on January 10th, 2022, be further amended by adding the following sentence to the STR amendments at the second reading on February 15th. They'll have to change, Your Worship. To the next meeting of council. Those amendments will come into force and effect on that date, which is the later of the municipal approval and March 28th, 2023, Your Worship.
Okay. Question?
So we're just going to put reading on second reading on March, the public meeting.
15th, I believe, yes. Yep.
Oh, yeah. It can be a different date. It could be February 28th when we'll meet again. Correct, Mr. Hooley? Yeah, it's just a different day. We don't have to wait for the month.
What's the different date? What are you talking about?
So, where this resolution right now, we do not have to wait until the next monthly meeting in March.
Which is the 14th, Your Worship.
Yeah, we have a meeting at the end of this month for a special meeting of council where it can be brought up and voted on.
So before we vote on second reading, we're voting on the amendment for the second reading?
No, we're voting.
So before we vote on second reading, we're voting on the amendment to the second reading.
Right.
To allow the full years.
Just what, Mr. Hooley, does that make sense?
It does, because you always deal with the amendment and then you vote on the resolution as amended. You're either for it or against it.
That's right.
We're just recognizing the grace period, that it's important that we have that grace period in place.
Yeah, that's all the amendment is, just a grace period, the 1 year.
We're just talking about the grace period, and originally, if the first reading didn't really give a full year, so we had corrected that and said, well, really, from the outset, we said a year, so we're just making that friendly amendment so that it says March of 28.
Councillor Yankoff.
Okay, no, and I understand that. Thank you so much, Councillor MacLeod. I'm just making sure that this resolution number 6 we are either voting in favor or not in favor of adding an amendment to the second reading of the STR bylaw. Is that correct? And then we're moving on. Then we're moving on to the second reading of the bylaw, which we all voted unanimously for last month. Is that right?
Right.
Not tonight. It looks like we're going to defer until either February 28th or the first or public meeting in March, whatever council decides. Whatever. What do you think, Peter?
Just one sec. Just hold on.
Wait a minute. What are we deferring? We haven't put anything on the floor yet to defer anything, have we?
No. We're just going to vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing at a time. Thank you.
One thing at a time.
Councillor Duran?
Thank you, Worship. I apologize. I was going with the original planning number 6, where it was 2 pages. That's what we got in our council package.
Right.
And I was wondering what you were talking about. Now I realized there was an email sent out today just for what you're talking about. So
exactly.
I understand now the grace period. I couldn't understand. I was going by the original one. So that's okay. So now we'll flip back to what Councillor Bernard was saying. I'd certainly vote for this, but I'd like to have a discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Duran, I did say at the first of the meeting that Tracy did send out an amended version of planning resolution number 6, and you probably missed that.
I understand that, but I was trying to get ready for the meeting and didn't really pay attention to you. Sorry.
Question? Question called?
Called.
Okay. All those in favor, please put up your hand for planning resolution number 6. Okay. So it's 8-8-0. And councillors, Wheel and Rivard in conflict. Okay, Mr. Kelly, I think now you have to read the first reading of that, sir. Correct.
I believe that was first reading.
Okay. Okay, so now we move on to the readings. You have those, Mr. Kelly?
So, Your Worship, I believe there was a request to defer the second reading. If that being the case, then that motion would be in place at this time, Your Worship, for discussion.
Okay, is that on the floor right now?
If council wishes, if not, I will put it on the floor, but I thought there was a desire to, again, defer pending that meeting, Your Worship.
Yeah, I'll put the motion on the floor to defer this second reading until the presentation is Robert Zill does the presentation.
And I'll second it.
Okay, so just on the deferral again, okay, it's about option 1. If you change any of the options, the whole process starts over. Is that correct, Councillor McLeod?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Hooley, is that correct?
When you say the whole process, you mean it will go back to a first reading?
Nope, it goes back to public.
No, you're back to square one, Councillor Bernard.
You're back to square one.
Okay.
If as a result of the meeting, council is not comfortable with the amendments and doesn't want to grant them second reading, you start all over again.
All over. Okay? Just so you know. Okay. Councillor Yankoff, you're all right with that?
I won't be supporting the deferral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, question on the deferral? Question called?
Question's called.
Question called. Okay, all those in favor of the deferral, please raise your hand.
Your Worship?
Yes?
Your Worship, if I may. So the lawyer just gave us some information there that I didn't know. So if Robert Zill does the presentation and we change from what this second reading is, then you're going to start all over again from square one. Public meetings and everything.
Everything.
Okay. So I'm going to drop my deferral.
You don't want to move the deferral?
I'm withdrawing it.
Okay.
If that's the case.
So I need someone else to move the deferral. So Councillor Duffy is moving the deferral, seconded by? Second by Councillor Ramsey. All those in favor of the deferral, please raise your hand in the deferral. 1, 2. Okay. All those against the deferral, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the deferral is rejected. Now we vote on the second reading. Shall it carry?
I have to put on the floor first, Your Worship, and then you can ask that question, Your Worship, if I could. So, whereas the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw PH-ZD.2-056 as pertains to the zoning and development bylaw amendments as attached was read and approved a first time on January 10th, 2022. Be it therefore resolved that the said bylaw be read a second time and approved. Moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall it carry?
And be resolved that resolved that this said bylaw be now adopted. Moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe. Your Worship.
Shall it carry?
Not in
No.
favor.
No,
Okay,
I'm not
so
in favor.
just 1 second. I have two. Can I just have to quickly go over? Deputy Mayor Cody, yay or nay?
In favor.
Councillor Bernard, yay or nay?
Favor.
Councillor McCabe, yay or nay?
In favor.
Councillor Duffy, yay or nay?
Nay.
Councillor Ramsey, yay or nay?
So, just for clarification, does this mean we're not gonna have any of the, ask Robert any questions?
That could still be done, Councillor,
Under
at some
the
point in time.
previous resolution.
Hold it, Philip, you don't gotta, you wanna ask, Peter, go ahead.
Sorry, at some
you want
point,
Mr. Kelly?
at some point in time, should council wish to have a presentation by staff, that can be done. Yes, Your Worship.
Under the previous resolution. Yay or nay, yay?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor MacLeod,
Yes, in favor.
Councillor Yankoff,
In favor.
and Councillor Duran.
Not in favor.
Okay, 6-2. Okay, is that it? On that,
I think there's some,
Councillor-
there's some readings there, I believe.
yeah. You're all right with that? Good. Thank you. Mr. Kelly, do you want to go with is there another reading?
There's two more, Your Worship. I understand there's some voice issues, but I'll try to see if that is cleared here.
We're having what?
Just a text, Jared's at, it's hard to hear you, so I'm just trying to get better on the computer here. So, moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe, that to adopt bylaw P8-ZD.2057, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw for 3 First Street, PID 276501, from the low-density residential R2 zone to the narrow single-detached residential R1N zone. Moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe, be it resolved that the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw, PH-ZD.2057, as it pertains to the 3 First Street, PID 276501, as attached, be read a first time and approved, and that it be read a second time at the next public meeting of council.
So this is first reading. Mr. Kelly, I believe that Councillor Tweel and Councillor Rivard can be invited back into the meeting. Have they been informed?
We'll see what we can do, Your Worship, just a second. Tracy, are you able to send a text to those two?
Just waiting to make sure they're back in the virtual room. Okay. Councillor Tweel, are you there?
I'm just
Councillor
trying
Rivard?
to get-
Okay. Councillor Tweel? Okay, we'll just go ahead with the vote. We'll just, I think,
I have to
He's not
repeat it
showing.
again, Your Worship. If Councillor Rivard wasn't here, so I'd have to repeat it again, Your Worship.
go ahead, go again, sir.
Let me just see if Councillor Twill's coming back on, Your Worship. 1 second, please.
Are you texting him?
Asking Tracy to try to track him down, Your Worship. We'll
Thank
make one last attempt.
Just hold. Oh, there he is, Councillor Tweel. Councillor Tweel, we're doing a first reading on 3 First Street. Do you want to repeat it there, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Your Worship. This is to adopt bylaw PH-ZD.2057, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to amend Appendix G of the zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw for 3 First Street, PID 276501, from low-density residential R2 zone to the narrow single-detached residential R1N zone. Moved by Councillor MacLeod, seconded by Councillor McCabe. Be resolved that the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw PH-ZD.2057 as pertains to 3 First Street, PID 276501, as attached, be read a first time and approved, and that it be read a second time at the next public meeting of Council.
Shall it pass?
Pass.
Pass.
Pass. Pass.
Councillor Tweel? Okay, read again, sir, 10-0.
Yes, Your Worship. Going on to the next one, to adopt the official plan amendment PH-OPA.1031, the land use for 85 Malpeque Road, PID 388181, as shown on Appendix A, future land use map of the City of Charlottetown official plan, is designated as institutional, hereby excluding it from its former designation of low-density residential. Moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe. Be resolved that the official plan amendment PH-OPA.1031 as pertains to 85 Malpeque Road, PID 388181, as attached, be adopted.
Okay, good. Shall it pass?
Pass.
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 Okay, 10-0.
And Your Worship, to adopt bylaw PH-ZD.2058, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw for 85 Malpeque Road, PID 388181, from the single detached residential R1L zone to the institutional 1 zone. Be moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor McCabe. Be resolved that the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw PH-ZD.2058 as it pertains to 85 Malpeque Road, PID 388181, as attached, be read a first time and approved, and that it be read a second time at the next public meeting of Council.
Shall it pass?
Pass. Pass. Pass.
Okay. Okay, Councillor MacLeod, is that,
That concludes.
sir, thank you very much, thank you. Mr. Hooley, did you want to conclude with anything on the grace period?
Just perhaps to remind council that the amendment will have to go into second reading at it. You can't do it tonight because it's the first reading. You've done first reading of the amendment for the grace period. So at your next regular meeting, my recommendation would be that you finish up that untidy business, or unfinished piece of business, and do second reading of the amendment. And then we've got the effective date to March of 2023.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councillor Tweel, are you ready to present your report, sir?
Yes, I am, Your Worship. The report is in your package. I'd like to read the prepared text from our manager, Ramona Doyle. I want to thank you, Ramona. Monthly transit ridership for January 2022 was 32,849 compared to January 2021, when ridership was 31,617. Monthly ridership from high school participants in the Student Transit Project was 308 this month. The city now has 17 public-facing EV chargers that are functioning, with 2 more to be added shortly at Pownell Parkade. January 2022, the chargers were used 33 times in the total. Gross amount of $250.47 was received through this usage. The downtown Charlottetown Public Library location and Fitzroy Parkade locations were the most used location for the EV charging. In 2015, the city conducted a tree canopy cover assessment, which found 22.2% tree cover in Charlottetown. The Environment Sustainability updated this tree cover assessment using the 2020 mapping to find that the tree canopy cover is now 20.91%. In 5 years, there was a decrease of tree canopy by 1.29%. This indicates that the current efforts did not allow for a growth in tree canopy cover or maintain the status quo during the time frame. A couple of observations are that wards 3, wards 4, wards 5, wards 6, and 9 saw the greatest decreases in tree cover from 0.16% to 0.36%. Ward 10 was the only ward to see an increase in the cover, 0.29%. The Environment Sustainability Department continues to work with other city departments to increase tree cover, and because of many benefits of trees in the urban environment, including air quality improvement, stormwater management, erosion control, heat control, and shading, and overall community well-being. That's the presentation. The report's in your package, Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best to answer any questions, and of course, anything from a technical perspective, I would certainly ask Ramona to help out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. Very comprehensive report. Any questions to the Chair of Environment and Sustainability? The report was so good it didn't generate any questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, sir.
I want to thank our staff. We have a great, exciting young staff in environment sustainability. I can say without any hesitations whatsoever, our staff are on the cutting edge. They're very innovative, very creative, and hardworking. And one thing about this department, we look for reasons to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. And if you can stay with us, great. But if you have to head out because you're not feeling well, understand it.
I do have one question for the councillor, if I may, Your Worship.
You go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tweel, for your report. Just, I've still been getting a few calls on crows. I know you in the past have had many residents in your area, and I think all the city. Just maybe any insight on, and starlings too. But, you know, just is there any insight and going to be brought up at a future meeting?
That's Tweel.
Thank you for your question, Councillor McLeod. It's on the agenda for tomorrow. I can tell you, I've too been requested to deal with the crow issue. You know, the Upper Prince Street area and the cemetery and University Avenue. It's just polluted with crows. It's just a reenactment of an Alfred Hitchcock movie, and something has to be done, because I can tell you this is you know, one of my constituents, someone I respect a great deal. You know, lived in Upper Prince Street for a number of decades, raised a great family. It is extremely unhealthy, and it's not a pandemic; it's an endemic, and it's we have to do something. We have to be proactive.
Thank
you. It's on the agenda, Councillor McLeod, and I hope to come up with a plan. I hope with the committee's approval tomorrow, we'll have a good discussion and we'll have a plan.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor McLeod, is that okay? Because we had the Birdman of Alcatraz, now we get the Crowman of Charlottetown. Thank you, Councillor Tweel.
Yep.
Next report, Councillor Yankov.
Thank you, Your Worship. The HR committee met just grab my dates. My binder just fell on the floor here. Just a second. HR. So our committee met on February the 1st. The minutes are included in your package. And as I had mentioned before, there were, the package says 2 resolutions, but there's only one for your consideration. And if anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, Your Worship. I have a question, but I'll wait to the resolution, Brad.
Okay, Councillor Thron, that's the, Councillor Yankoff, you removed one and you're doing one more. You're doing one of the 2,
So
correct?
it's number 1, Your Worship.
That's correct. Number 1.
Councillor Tweel, do you have a question on the resolution or just a question in general?
Just a question in general. Thank you for your report, Councillor Lana. I would like to see your committee work on a report for work harassment and harassment that councillors face from fellow councillors. Please take that under advisement and come in with a report so we can deal with that.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. I will be sure to add that on to the next agenda for our next committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Your Worship, if you wish me to put the motion on the floor, it is moved by Councillor Yankoff.
Can we go ahead?
Sorry, you moved by Councillor Yankoff, second by Deputy Mayor Cody, that the City of Charlottetown accept the amendments to the harassment in the workplace policy as per attached, Your Worship.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, Councillor Thron, I think you had one. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for your report, Councillor Yankoff. I have a couple of concerns about the changes. The first one, I just go down to the resolve of complaints, where it says 7.1, informal basis, change to add the complaint should be written and may be resolved. And the concern I have is when you have should, you know, who's going to enforce that? In this case here, you know, you should do this, or you know, you should not. I think must has to be implemented in it in 7.1 because it takes away the ability to just wave it off. What I think, if there's going to be a complaint, it should be in writing. You know, a lot of people, if they say it, a complaint, and just tell you or someone else, then it gets changed. So when you should do something, or you must do it. So I'd ask for that to be changed. And the next one I have concerns about is we'll go down to 4.4 in the responsibility and accountability. It says in this one, in the case of a complaint against a member of council, refer to the code of conduct applicable to council, which outlines the investigative process in that instance. So when you put up the code of conduct 25.2, it says, before commencing the formal internal resolution procedure specified below, the member or members of council who are party or parties to alleged contravention of this bylaw will endeavor to resolve the matter informally in a courteous and respectful manner, recognizing that they have been elected to represent the best interests of the city. So my personal concern with this is, you know, these are words. When I did ask the lawyer in my situation what should have happened or what must happen, determined a lot of things. So, you know, here we're referring to the council code of conduct in 4.4, and when you go to that, there should have been a sit-down situation. I don't know how you can miss steps and proceed. So, you know, I just ask for you to take this back, and I'll email you some, what I think is, you know, could help for the next situation. So what I'm asking now is to defer this resolution, until your committee can sit down and look at the concerns that I brought forward. But if council wants to vote on it, then so be it. But, I'd like to defer this until we look into this a little more.
Councillor Yankoff?
Thank you, Councillor Duran. Thank you, Councillor Duran. Really good notice of 4.4, because or I should say 7.1. You're right, in my opinion too, it should be a must. And I think that might have been a mistake in our part. And in terms of 4.4, if the only concern we had was 7.1, we could probably have just amended that and voted on the report or on the policy. But given your concerns on 4.4, I tend to agree with you that if it's council's wishes that we defer this back to committee to ensure we get this right, I would certainly support that, Councillor Duran.
Thank you.
Councillor McCabe?
I will second his request to send that back to committee, but I also want, and Councillor Duran, is that the most updated code of conduct you have? Because on 25.2, I thought that we indicated that even with your first step in a complaint, and Councillor Twill, this is kind of where you were asking about this thing too, is that we have a written, something signed by both parties where that conversation actually did occur when we have complaints. There is a process in place, Councillor Twill, for when you feel like things aren't being done right, and it is through the code of conduct. But I'm pretty sure that we amended that before I left chair, but it would be worth a check.
I'm not 100% sure. I just put in city Charlottetown code of conduct, and
well, it should be updated if it's on the website, so it's worth a check. I know we had lots of discussion about ensuring that step isn't missed.
Okay. So, Councillor McCabe, are you seconding the deferral?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor McCabe to defer amendments to the harassment in the workplace policy. Just before we vote, Mr. Hooley, since you're here, under 7.0, subsection 7.1, the complainant should, that's the same as must, is it not? It's may or shall. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it should would allow for the the authority having jurisdiction to allow a verbal complaint, for example. If you want it in writing, it should say shall or will.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So that has to be changed. Okay. Do we want to, Councillor Yankoff, call the question? All those in favor of the deferral, please raise your hand. Okay. And
yes.
And Councillor Duran and Deputy. Okay, so we'll defer that. Is that it, Councillor Yankoff?
That's it for me, unless anyone else had any other questions. We can move on.
Okay. So let's move on to police or protective and emergency services, and that's Councillor Greg Lubert.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Protective and Emergency Services Committee met on January the 21st, as well as January 25th. The minutes are included in your package. We don't have any resolutions for tonight for consideration, but I did want to commend the Chief Brad McConnell and the police staff for this last weekend with the protest. I know a huge inconvenience for a lot of residents, business owners, but even with all the, I'll say, inconveniences, I think the police department handled extremely well. I think they communicated well with the protest group to ensure that they were able to kind of motor through town quickly, and that takes a lot of work from the police department. So I just want to raise a toast, I guess, if you will, if I had a beer, but I certainly compliment them on their hard work. So thank you. Any questions? I'm here, happy to answer.
Councillor Everard, thank you very much, and I support what you say there about what took place last weekend. Very well executed, and thanks to the chief and all the departmental staff. Any other questions, please? I have Councillor Bernard. Do you want to go first?
Just one quick second, Worship. I also want to mention Public Works and again other departments that were involved in that. It wasn't just police. I know it was orchestrated by police, but it took a lot of the different committees and different groups within the city to come together to do this. So, call missed everybody. Thank you. Sorry.
Councillor Bernard and then Councillor Tweel.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to echo what Councillor Rivard said. It was handled very, very well. I think obviously the chief has shown that he's got very good communication skills. There's been some issues that we've been dealing in my area, and so it's the communication skills that the chief has showed has certainly resolved those issues for me. And they're having trouble across Canada with these protests, and ours so far seems to be the most peaceful. So again, I agree with you, Councillor Rivard, and a good job with the chief and your department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernard. Councillor Tweel.
Thank you. Chief Brad, I want to commend the department on the drug bust that had taken place in Kensington Road. Excellent work. Like to see more of it, particularly in the downtown area. So, please continue on with that work. The residents certainly appreciate it, and I want to give a shout out to Tim Kaiser, who's done some good work on Mount Edward Road with regard to heavy truck traffic. The residents on that street would like that street to be a neighborhood street. There is signage, I believe, on that street prohibiting heavy truck traffic. The bypass was built to accommodate that traffic, and we'd like to continue on with that and to deter heavy truck traffic on Mount Edward Road and also on Harley Street as well. Thank you.
Councillor Rivard, did you want to respond? Good.
No need.
Councillor Ramsey, Your Worship.
Councillor Ramsey, thank you, sir.
And once again, I'd like to, a big thank you to Brad and all the officers. I sent you an email, Brad, the other day, and you did a fantastic job, how you're on top of everything for the freedom protest, and I think it was great. I drove around, and they're allowing traffic to go through traffic lights and everything like that, so I'm very impressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Okay, I think that's it. Councillor Rivard.
Your Worship, I do have a question for Chief Randy McDonald with the fire department. I just wanted to bring this up. Chief, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead, Councillor.
Okay, just on the topic of the lights on Kent Street. I know that in the news article, I think it was on the 9th of February, we said that it was the fire department felt it was a too big of a risk, I guess, to hang up the lights. And I have an email here from David Black here, and I just want to read a couple of paragraphs quickly, and I just want to ask a question at the end of it. So, in the middle of the email, it says, I have also reviewed the National Fire Code of Canada, the National Fire Prevention Association codes, and position on the perceived barrier to fire ground operations your project will create, and have come to the conclusion that it's a very manageable fire ground obstacle and see very little need for the Charlottetown Fire Department to deny approval for your project to proceed. I see nothing that you are proposing which will cause a fire command officer to find his or her position hopeless in getting to the root of the problem, given the human resources and the tools of the trade they will bring into the site. With that in mind, this is a firefighter that's been around for 47 years that I think has a pretty good grasp of the code, Chief. Is there an opportunity to revisit this, or is this from your perspective kind of a closed book decision made?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Rivard. What came forward there was an application for the process for the lights to go up in Kent Street. It was reviewed by the fire inspector. The fire inspector consulted with NFPA, NFPA 1 to be exact, and got proper termination of the code. And also turned around and spoke with the provincial fire marshal who's fire marshal now, Dave Rossiter. And yes, I do know Mr. Blackyer, and I've known him for many, many years. And the fire inspector determined that the process was non-compliant with the fire code in FPA 1. So the matter has been looked at. It's been looked at many, many times, and it's non-compliant.
So Chief, this is not an interpretation issue from one or two people. You're saying this has gone through, and I'll say many sets of eyes, if you will. Fair to say that?
Correct. It's been looked at by different sets of eyes, and the code is the code. Unfortunately, we don't want to rain in anybody's parade, but at the same time, having wires overhead, we can't have that either when we're trying to throw ladders on a window on a building, trying to rescue somebody, or trying to raise an aerial device.
So is there a solution, Chief? I mean, this is something that was brought to council. Council, I think, unanimously supported this. I believe it was 10-0 the vote. Just is there any solution here? Is there any potential, I'll say, workarounds that would satisfy the fire department, yet still kind of help beautify Charlottetown, being Kent Street we're talking about here?
Right. If you take overhead obstructions out of the picture and try to address what you want to do without overhead obstructions, then there's an opportunity. But if the opportunity is going to be to include overhead obstructions, I don't see it going forward.
No matter how high?
No matter how high.
Okay, that's all I have for questions. Thank you.
You're all right, Councillor Rivard? Good?
Is that?
I have a question, Your Worship.
No, I know. Okay, I can. Councillor Durano raised his hand first, then Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Durano, question to the chair?
Yes, thank you, Chair Rivera.
Thank you.
And Chief McDonald, I fully support you, Chief, but just like everybody else does. But I didn't vote for this, Greg. This wasn't unanimous, so I just want to clarify that one. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Ramsey?
Yeah, and I'm like Greg too. So you're basically telling us there's no way this can work, where it works in other cities and it worked on Victoria Roll and Sydney Street and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden when it was voted on, which is going to be great for our downtown city, and then it shut down basically because nobody knew it was going to be shut down until my wife called me in to watch Compass Air last week when the fire inspector just said no, it's not going. So that was a shock to me as a councillor when there's no discussion on it. So I just wanted to, so it's almost put to bed?
Well, Councillor Ramsey, thank you very much for your comments. Normally these processes, they come through in a form of an application to the fire department. A fire inspector will take the application and will review the matter in accordance with fire codes. I'm not sure if the cart got in front of the horse this trip around or not, but anyways, nonetheless, that application did come forward. The fire inspector did review the matter. Did reach out to NFPA to make sure that he was in step with the fire code and making his determination. He also went one step further and went to the provincial fire marshal and spoke with him, making sure that he was his determination was correct, and it was. So with that, then the fire inspector made the determination that it was non-compliant with the fire code. With regards to this fire code, and it's everywhere else in the world is allowed to take place, both the province of Prince Edward Island and the province of Newfoundland and Labrador have adopted this standard. They're the only two places in Canada that have adopted NFPA 1. NFPA 1 is a great code. There's no question about it. So there have been many people looked at this, and the code is the code, unfortunately, sometimes. And sometimes we have to be the bearer of bad news. And in this event, that's what's happening here, is that there's an obstruction of overhead and prevents us from doing our job.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Quite welcome.
Councillor Bird, anything else? You're good?
No, Your Worship. I was just actually learned something now. Just talking about the that we're the only one of two jurisdictions that have adopted this code, which would explain the I guess the answer to some of the questions that I've been getting from residents and business owners talking about why can it be done here, and here, or there, not here, and I guess it can't be done in Newfoundland either.
And I might add, Councillor Rivard, comments that we have, the fire inspector did check with other jurisdictions around the regional area. And it's consistent with other regional areas as well. They wouldn't want it permitted either.
No, Argyle, Chief, on Argyle Street in Halifax, they have the overhanging lights.
Correct. They do. I did see a picture of that, although other jurisdictions wouldn't permit it, Your Worship.
Yeah. No, but they do have it there. I think that's something that they're looking at modeling. So what about the overhead wires for electrical and telecommunications? Are they part of this solution going forward to put these underground?
Well, it's interesting that you mention that. Many times when we're dealing with a fire, where to place an aerial device all depends on overhead branches of trees, electrical lines, that sort of thing. And we've also in the past have had Maritime Electric shut down power, so we could operate safely with an aerial device. Downtown, as you can recall, Queen Street used to have a lot of power lines. The city implemented a lot of funding to be able to put those lines underground, and I believe now planning has got a plan in place to do maybe more underground wiring somewhere in the 500 lot as well. So it's not something, a decision that was taken lightly by the fire department or the fire inspector in particular. He looked at everything he could look at, and unfortunately, we're left where we're left, and it's non-compliant.
Okay.
Chief.
Go ahead.
Chief, sorry, thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering, is there any way we can get that ruling just in writing as well? Chief, is that something that's possible?
Oh yeah,
from the NFPA?
Yeah, there's no problem there. We have that. The fire inspector has that on file.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tweel, just second question. Go ahead.
I want to thank the fire department. Sometimes these recommendations from the department, especially protective services, these as the chief said himself, we have to be the bearer of bad news. I don't know, Chief, if it's bad news. What I think is making sure that compliance is there, and looking out for the safety of our residents. And those are tough decisions. And I just want I certainly respect and appreciate those decisions, particularly in protective services such as fire. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. And Councillor Bird, I did mention, I know you forgot about a shout out, but during this to protest last week, I know that the chief and the deputies and the police officers worked with the comms department, and they made sure that the information didn't get out there to residents of Charlottetown and Islanders that the event this was taking place last Saturday. And again, another big shout out, very coordinated effort of all departments and staff. So big thank you from Mayor and Council.
I actually did mention all departments, Your Worship, because I knew it was collective. So I did correct myself and then said all departments came together in unison to orchestrate.
It happened. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So can we go on to Councillor McLeod, go ahead.
Thank you. Just another shout out since we're all on good trim.
No, you're mute. Councillor McLeod, you went mute.
Sorry, I got it back. Just want to shout out to Brad and the staff of the police department. Not only did they carry out the drug bust in a safe manner and kept the residents safe, but the follow up afterwards. With all the work that has to be done, they took the time to phone and give me a call just to give me a heads up so that if anyone was asking me, I would be up to date. So really appreciate that, Brad. Thank you very much and a great job, and keep it up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very positive meeting there, Councillor Rivard, coming from the report of Protective Services. Councillor Alana Yankoff, CAC, I have Council Advisory Committee, 6.4.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Council Advisory Committee met on Friday, January 28th. The draft minutes are included in your package, and we do not have any resolutions for your consideration this evening. However, if anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer. Thank you.
Okay. 6.4. Oh, I can't see you, Councillor Tweel. Got a question for Councillor Yankoff?
Not so much. Thank you, Councillor Atlanta, for your report. I'd like to recommend some changes to the council advisory committee. Would you please put that on your agenda for the next committee meeting, and see if we can have other members of council participate on this committee?
Councillor Yankoff, just to interject, Mr. Kelly or Mr. Hooley, I think if you look at our procedural bylaw from 2018, Councillor Tweel, that's the AC, the Council Advisory Committee, is a vote from council. Now,
I understand that. I understand that,
Kelly, now, just 1 second, Mr. Kelly, am I wrong there?
No, Your Worship, it was created by council, so any changes to that structure would have to be done by council, Your Worship.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So just to follow up, Your Worship, again, I want to thank Councillor Lana for her report, and would you please put it on your committee's agenda to look at some changes for the makeup of the committee, to give other members of council the opportunity to participate in recommendations and make recommendations to council.
Councillor Yankoff.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. I think I'm going to defer this over to Mr. Kelly, and just to find out what's the actual procedure if we were making changes to the council advisory. If I'm hearing it correctly, those changes would come from a resolution of council first, I think, to take back to council advisory. So
okay.
Council would make that. I think so. Now, I could be incorrect, but we'll just check with either His Worship or Mr. Kelly or legal counsel that's here, and then we can take it from there. Thank you.
So, Your Worship, if the
Councillor
terms...
Yankoff, you're perfectly right. Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Your Worship, if the terms of reference are to be changed, ultimately they will be approved or changed by council. If the committee itself wanted to recommend some changes, they could refer those to council for their discussion, Worship. But ultimately, council will decide if there is to be changing or any change to the terms of reference.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tweel, a question to clarify or another question?
Just a clarification. So, does that require a resolution of City Council, as Councillor Lana pointed out? Does that require a resolution of City Council, and then to instruct the advisory committee to make the changes to the makeup of the committee?
Well, if you go back, Councillor Tweel, when the committee was formed, it came from the council floor, and you recall that there was discussion about a secret ballot, and you cannot use a secret ballot in a public meeting of council, so we had to do a open vote. And
that's correct.
The first two councillors selected to it were Councillor Duffy and Councillor McLeod, and then we added Councillor Yankoff, and then because it was we couldn't split, or a tie couldn't be broken, we had to add another member, and that's where the deputy was at, and that was passed by a resolution of council. So
okay, so it does require a resolution from City Council, and then it goes back to the advisory committee, correct?
It depends what it is you want to do, Councillor. If you wish to put your thoughts on paper, we can either come up through the committee or through council if council wants to change the terms. But ultimately, as I say, council will be the one who will agree or not agree with any changes. But if you have any ideas you want to forward to the committee for their discussion to go back to council, that is an option as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yankoff, thank you again. Thank you very much. Okay, 6.5, Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Activities. Councillor Terry Bernard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, Parks and Rec and Leisure Committee met on February the 9th, and that was to begin discussion on the operational budget requirements for the 2022-2023 budget year. So there's no resolutions for council consideration tonight, Your Worship, but some updates from the department I'd like to share. Your Worship, so we're pretty pleased. We've had received confirmation on the major funding approval for the Simmons Sports Center replacement project, as you know. A little over $18 million between the federal and provincial governments on the $25.5 million project. So that was a big announcement. Obviously, very good news. So now we can really move forward with the contracts, the tender documents to move this project forward. So Your Worship, staff are currently working on the tender for the building envelope and getting the pre-engineered steel ordered, as we see this as the number one priority, because steel seems to be where the most significant delays are occurring. So we're looking to get this order in as soon as possible and try to get ahead of that supply chain that's occurring with the steel, or that supply chain delay, sorry. So we're moving straight ahead on that now that the funding is in place and confirmed. Another piece of good news I'm pleased to share is you may recall last October we had the discussion in council where I let them know that the tender proposed for the West Rodian multi-purpose outdoor facility was over budget significantly. So I had met with Minister Jamie Fox, and he's the Fisheries but Communities Minister, and MLA Zach Bell, who was the MLA for the area, looking for possible funding options to help us with this project. So we were so pleased to let everyone know that the meeting paid off, and we did receive word that we would be receiving $100,000 from ACOA to help with this project, make it a reality this year, so we'll be moving ahead. So I want to also publicly thank MP Sean Casey, who's the ACOA funding is under, and thank Jamie Fox and Zach Bell for their help on this. And I know there's still some discussion of some possible further help from the province. So Your Worship, it's good to see those two projects are going to be on the move for sure. And so, yeah, any questions that I can help the rest of the council with, please let me know. Thank you, Your Worship.
Great report, Councillor Bernard, and look, great announcement this last week. The MP from the area, James Aylward, Minister of Transportation, Infrastructure and Energy. It was a very good announcement, and now we're ready to put boots on the ground, shovels in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Tweel, you have a question.
Thank you for your report, Councillor Bernard. As you can recall, when we went through the budget deliberations, I made a recommendation. I'm still hopeful that maybe, if the staff have the time, that we can do have an outdoor rink for the people in the Des Percé Park area. There's nothing in that area, and that's a high-density area. There's lots of children in that particular community, so I bring that forward again. You to bring back to your committee, discuss it with staff to see if there is a possibility to add an outdoor rink for the Des Percé Park community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. We'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're feeling okay, Councillor Tweel? You're all right to stay with the meeting? Okay. Can we move on to water and sewer utility? And that's Councillor Bob Duran.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Water and Sewer Utility Committee did not meet since the last meeting of the council. Happy to add that our e-billing system now are now over 1,400 customers, which is a great savings for the utility. And talking to the manager there today, and it's very easy once you get onto it. You can look at your past bills. It's something that we'll have to get more information out there to get our customers onto e-billing, which is a positive aspect of the department. I do have two resolutions coming forward for your consideration of council today, and if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bob Duran. Any questions? No? Okay. Mr. Kelly, do you want to read water and wastewater utility number?
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Duran, and second by Deputy Mayor Cody, that the City of Charlottetown accepts the tender from McFarland Industrial in the amount of $27,609 plus applicable taxes for the supply of one steel service body to fit Dodge Ram 3500 chassis, Your Worship.
Questions called.
Questions called. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Councillor Duran and Councillor and Deputy. Okay. 10-0. Next one, sir.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved
Go ahead,
by
sir.
Councillor Duran, second by Deputy Mayor Cody, that the City of Charlottetown agrees to an alteration of the location of the sanitary sewer main that passes through PID 1106905, located at the foot of Prince Street. All costs associated with the relocation of this of the sewer main and alteration of the easement are to be covered by the developer.
Questions called.
Questions called. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Councillor Duran, Deputy Mayor Cody, 10-0. That's it, sir.
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Duran.
Thank you.
Okay, our next, Councillor Julie McCabe. Public Works and Urban Beautification, Councillor McLeod.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Public Works and Urban Beautification Committee met on February the 14th. The Civic Board of Persons with Disabilities did not meet since last month. I have no resolutions anticipated to move forward, but any questions or concerns, I'll try to answer. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, Councillor Rivard, and then Councillor Tweel, and Councillor Duran.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor McLeod, for your report. Rare to see no resolutions from Public Works. you had your planning show earlier, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm going to put a resolution on the floor, Your Worship, right now, and if it gets a seconder, then I'd like to speak to it, as opposed to speaking to it, then putting the resolution on the floor. So I'll do it this way. So I want to put a resolution on the floor to terminate the enterprise fleet management contract. And I'll leave it at that for right now. If I don't get a seconder, I'll let it go to rest. But I would like to speak to it after that, if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Rivard, I went through the procedural bylaw, and I believe Mr. Kelly or Mr. Hooley, I think it falls under section 24. This has to come through one of the committees, a committee, whether it's Public Works or Finance. It has to come through the standing committee as a resolution.
You can put a motion on the floor,
let me finish. Or if the item is on the agenda, like it was back last August, September, I think Councillor Tweel, the vote was 4-3. Is that what you remember?
Yes, Your Worship, it was a 4-3 vote. The resolution was not in the package.
No, but
the resolution did come off the floor.
But the item was on the agenda. This item is not on the agenda. Therefore, it has to go back to one of the standing committees, whether it's Finance and Properties or Public Works and Urban Beautification. Mr. Kelly or Mr. Just one second, Mr. Kelly or Mr. Hooley, can you comment on that procedural bylaw section?
So I'll go to the legal counselorship, but ordinarily there would be a notice of motion given and either referred to committee, but I'll go to legal to get their input, Your Worship.
Mr. Hooley?
I don't have the section in front of me, but just speaking generally, council operates on a committee system. All of the committees are advisory committees, and the business that comes up to council typically comes up through a committee, there's a lot of very good sound policy reasons for that being the case. So I agree with CAO Kelly that that's the way to bring it up, and the mayor is through the committee. Now, if I had that section in front of me, I might change my mind, or I might say the same thing.
David, if I could just add it here, it says section 20, items added by council, section 20.1, that's a subsection. Notwithstanding section 19 of this bylaw, the council shall not vote on a motion arising out of an item added to the agenda by a member until a staff report and recommendation is received from the appropriate standing committee.
That confirms it.
It's right, and again, these are not the procedural bylaws that I brought forward. These were brought back in 2018. Councillor Rivard, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, there wasn't a recommendation from the Finance Committee when this was voted on. It was a discussion item only. So I guess I'm a little perplexed how it got through the first time, and yet roadblocks continue to be put up here for discussion. So it's perplexing, and I'd certainly like legal opinion on that one, because again, we didn't have a recommendation from Finance, which it should have went through, and then it was a discussion item only to a vote on the floor, missing 3 councillors. And I think to do this properly, I think all 10 councillors should vote on this. This is a big vote, and this is one it's been a really, it's been a kind of a sore point for me, and trying to get this to a point where 10 councillors can vote on this is big. This is a big decision, guys. This is not easy we shouldn't fluff it off and try to block it every which way we can.
So just to be clear, Your Worship, the way that this Your Worship, the way that this did get to council is that finance forwarded to council without recommendation, Your Worship, and they wanted council to make the decision.
Correct. And Mr. Kelly, what date, do you have a date of that?
No, I don't have it here, Your Worship.
Okay. Anyways, let's go back to the speaker list. I have Councillor Duffy, then Councillor Tweel. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to correct Councillor Bernard. It was at Finance twice. It was there on March the 31st with no action taken. It was back again on June the 9th, and at that time it was forwarded. It was forwarded to City Council with the recommendation, and this is a quote, for appropriate action. And that was the second time, which was June the 9th. So it was not only at Finance, it was at Finance twice.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tweel, and then Councillor Bernard. No. On mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's a number of concerns that I have. That's why I said no at the time. But the resolution, we talked about the committee structure and going back to the respective committees, whether it be Finance or Public Works. The resolution that come off the floor did not come from Finance or did not come from Public Works. It came from Councillor Bernard, who's not a member of either committee. So, and that's his right. He moved the resolution, and that's fine. So, it's great to say now we want to go back to the respective committees when the resolution did not come from either Finance or Public Works. It come off the floor, and I don't see why we can't have that discussion here tonight in a respectful, reasonable fashion. There's the community. Business community, in particular the Automobile Association, is asking for that second sober thought. I think we owe it to them. We owe it to their employees. We owe it to the taxes they pay in this city. We owe it to the contributions they make to the various charities in our city. I think there was a misstep. With all due respect to everyone, there was a misstep in that this did not go to an open tender. If you look at the procurement agreement, it wasn't open, transparent in terms of that all parties would have an opportunity to be able to compete and to submit their proposals, submit their bids. And I think that's what was lost here more than anything else. In the private sector, you have to be able to compete. And what we're seeing here, with all due respect, regardless of how you voted, this is an orchestrated monopoly. It's a monopoly for an international conglomerate at the expense of our local dealers that have been here for decades. We owe it to them to have a second sober thought, a second sober discussion, and let's rescind it, and let's get more information from the staff, and then let's let the chips fall where they may. But we owe it, Your Worship, we owe it to the Automobiles Association and all their employees, all the taxes they pay. We owe them that much.
I fully agree with you, but again, Councillor Duffy, could you just please refer to those two dates again? March what?
Your Worship, the first was March the 31st.
Sent it to Finance.
Yes. And it was at Finance, and they did nothing with it. The second one was June the 9th. This time they referred it to City Council, and the quote was for appropriate action.
Now, again, Councillor Duffy,
yes.
Mr. Kelly, was that the meeting that the vote was 4-3? Correct?
Yes. The 4-3 vote was when it came to council, so it did go to closed session due to legal discussions, if you recall. Right. After the discussion in closed session, Then in business arising from the closed session, the motion was put on the floor and duly passed, Your Worship. But I also want to clarify that this did go through due process. That report did come to council. Council was fully informed of what process it did go through, and if you wish us to recirculate that document, Your Worship, we will, but it did go through a process, Your Worship. It didn't go it just didn't pass through, as is indicated by Councillor Tweel. That's not true.
Okay, just quickly, just hold it. No, Councillor Tweel, just 1 second.
I need to respond.
No. Councillor Bernard, Councillor McLeod, and then Councillor McCabe. Dave, and I think Councillor Durant, did you have your hand up? Oh, and Councillor Yanka. Okay.
No, thank you.
Councillor Bernard, you go first, or yes?
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, it's pretty unfortunate that we keep regurgitating the same thing over and over and over. And I guess, you know, we want to go back in a little bit of history. I mean, finance with the city of Charlottetown is responsible for the finances, the audit, and the tendering. That's why it's called finance, audit, and tendering. We have Councillor Cody and we have Councillor Rivard who sit on that. One's the chair of it, one's the vice chair of it. Their responsibility is to flush this out when it came to them. Now, it looks like they didn't, and they passed it on to Public Works. So the Public Works staff, now my understanding is that the finance administrative staff was approval of this. Then it went on to Public Works, and Public Works flushed it out, and they were recommending it. And I guess, you know, to me, there's a lot of information here. I mean, it's an open capitalized lease program, and so you hear people start when they hear the word lease. I mean, everybody's talking about, you know, releasing these vehicles. When they do the comparison, I mean, last year they had 13 vehicles that were tendered out. This year there was, I believe, 17, and the prices. You know, I don't know if Nancy's on the line there or not, but Nancy, if you are, because now that the vehicles have been ordered, and I understand that the numbers are done. And if you can give me the math that I have, anyway, looks like with the 16 vehicles plus they were all 4x4 crew cabs, and one was a 3/4 ton. And if I'm correct, is that the savings so far compared to last year? Is there $261,000? Is that correct, Nancy?
That's approximately right. Yes.
Okay. Nancy McCrae.
So it's an open capitalized. So Nancy, if you can confirm with me, it's an open capitalized lease program, which we own the vehicles.
That's right. It is an open-ended capitalized lease, and these are treated no different than if we bought them outright through a tender process. We can sell these at any time, and we retain the equity in them. These vehicles are listed as assets of the city. The Automobile Association I'm just going to list a bunch of points. The PEI Automobile Association refers to the markup as a pass-through, and that's really incorrect because a pass-through refers to leased vehicles, and as we just discussed, they are a capital lease, which puts them more on the side of an asset. So the enterprise role is to ensure that the dealerships are treated fairly when it comes to this markup, not pass-through. And they can propose whatever markup they see as reasonable. And it's up to the city to decide whether or not to accept that. And it's based on Enterprise's expertise. The trucks are chosen based on the best per kilometer value of the truck and what it's going to give the city and how it's going to give the city the highest rate of return. As far as the fees, the dealers are worried that they're on the hook for the motor vehicle inspections, the pre-delivery inspection, fuel, administrative expenses, etc. But these are all to be covered by the city. These expenses are all to be passed on to the city. They are not out of the markup fee, which is what was indicated in our last meeting by the Automobile Association. So again, the trucks are all assets of the city, and we don't pay for kilometers like you would on a personal lease. This is an entirely different set of leasing agreements than what we, as citizens typically see. So we've had the contract renewed by the city finance staff, our outside auditors. Legal has reviewed the contract, as well as our insurance company. part of the thing is there seems to be concerns on what we all think what's going to take place. But in fact, there's been no invoicing yet, no billing or delivery. So we're kind of forecasting disaster comparing, this to the rental side of the enterprises organization. We can sell these off via tender or through the enterprise team. It's our choice. If we use them, it's at the cost of, if we use the enterprise team, it's at the cost of $4.95 per truck, but there's also selling fees with auctions and so on. So the other big thing we have to factor in is that we have not rotated our fleet for the best financial outcome, meaning that for example, our duty trucks, they'll have hundreds of thousands of kilometers on them. They're running 24/7, and they're not replaced as frequently where we could gain more cost efficiency. So our maintenance bills on some of the older fleet are incredibly high. We won't have those maintenance costs with this deal. So all I can do is give you the terms as we know them to be, that's there's going to be differences of opinion and so on, but as far as the city staff goes, meaning the finance department and public works, our job is to find the best deal and look after the finances of the city the best we can. And in our opinion, this contract accomplishes that. Thank you.
Councillor Bernard, Councillor Bernard, just one. Again, we have to place the question through the chairman, the chairperson. The chair is Councillor McLeod. So just so we can keep some order here, do you want to?
No,
is that all right, Mr. Chair? That provides those questions.
I just want to finish up. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Nancy. I mean, that's the point I've been making is basically, there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of misinformation, and this is something new to us. This particular open-ended capitalized lease program, and I guess in a excuse me, in a quick way, you could say. You had mentioned it's $220,000 cost to the city. The assets $885,000. We own the vehicles. We sell them when we want. There's no turning them in after a certain time frame and paying for dent scratches or what have you, or if you're over the miles. These are our vehicles. And my understanding is the same. It went through the auditors, through the lawyers, through the insurance company. It's just that we've been back and forth, and there's a lot of misinformation, and I think that this is a unique program. But I just wanted to capitalize. One of the things we were told early on that that this would save us approximately $180,000 a year when we over 10 years approximately $1.8 million. And so far this year, I see we're at $261,000 savings comparing vehicles of the previous tenders, which I think is good. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, we all know we have that clause to opt out anytime. This is basically a firm that's managing our fleet for us and looking around. So they do deal with the local dealerships to get the best pricing for us. Is that correct, Nancy?
Okay.
They do go to the local. The only other thing, Your Worship, I wanted to say was this program was part of the FCM tender process where they successfully vendored between 6 other fleet management companies. So FCM proposed this program for municipalities.
Okay.
So I don't see, for me, and nobody wants to see the dealers hurt, and that's why we said early on, as long as this went through the local dealers and they get to maintain the vehicles and we save money, it seems like a win-win situation. Okay. I think sometimes that's why the committees have responsibilities, and you can't just pass them on. And that this should have been flushed out almost a year ago. And I've seen a couple of the proponents against this, or 2 that sit on finance, and it was just passed on to public works. So this keeps coming around in a circle, and if we're going to regurgitate every vote, it's going to be it's causing problems now within council. So anyway, thank you.
Just before we go on, please try to go through the chair. The chair is Councillor McLeod, and that way he can allow some management on it. Again, the item cannot be added because it's in our procedural bylaw under section 20, subsection 20.1. Councillor McCabe, and then Councillor McLeod and Councillor Rivard. Councillor Tweedy, you've already spoken twice. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. And I'm just going back in our minutes where we had 4 questions that were put on the floor when we discussed this last week from the Deputy CAO. The 4 questions around, you know, the contract, are they honoring their contract? For me, and I did speak to the CAO yesterday, and Terry recommended that we have a look at the contract. I haven't seen the contract yet, and I don't know if anybody else has seen the contract, but maybe that is something that we need to look at, and then we can form a fair evaluation around, you know, what's going on. But definitely there was 4 questions put out, and we haven't even got to that point yet.
Thank you for that reminder, Councillor McCabe. You're right on, because that was left from, I believe, our January 27th meeting. But yes, good point. So we're just having this discussion. We're going to wrap up with a couple more speakers and then move on. Councillor McLeod, did you want to speak? And then
yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess I just want to say that I've had 3 or 4 calls from some of the dealers, and each time their information they have is wrong, right? I mean, we sat down with Lisa and the automobile dealers here just recently, and everything was explained, and not a word was said, because it's a good deal, guys. Like, it's unfortunate that the local dealers were only giving us 1 bid. It was great for them, wasn't it? There was no complaints when there was only 1 bid coming for a vehicle when we sent out a tender. So we directed staff to say, we got to do better. Like, we're paying too much for our vehicles, and this is what come out of it. And it just so happened that the FCM, right, there's going to be more municipalities do this because it's a good deal. Right? At the end of the day, you know, yes, they pay taxes, and so does every other business in the city of Charlottetown. But that doesn't mean we go out and want to do business with every one of them. We do whatever's best for the taxpayers of the city of Charlottetown. That's the deal here, and that's who's the winner, and it's a good deal. Thank you.
Councillor Bird, we're going to wrap it up. No, on mute.
Sorry, yeah, I just took my hand down. So, listen, you guys are arguing numbers. The question that becomes, is it right? The answer is no. The answer is not right. And Councillor McLeod, you just stated that we had one bidder, I guess, on vehicles. Or listen, it ties into a comment that was made back in August 23rd, 2021, where it was from a city employee. It said, since I've started, the only people that submitted bids, this is coming on 5 years, is Reliable Motors and Summerside Chrysler Dodge. The only people that bid in our vehicles since 2017. That is false. That is false. There's 6 different companies who bid on these things. So again, it goes back to the statement that Tina made, and I'll save it for another day. But when Tina talked about the 4 questions, did we have all the information when we voted? We certainly didn't have all the councillors in the room when we voted, and I think these type of decisions are big, and it shouldn't have went on the floor for a 7-3 vote with 3 councillors missing. I really, really believe it was wrong. I believe it was pushed through, and I don't like it. So I'll
for 2 years.
Hear me out. Hear me out. I would like to add this to the agenda for next month, please. I don't care how it gets to the agenda. I would like it added to the agenda next month, or I can again discuss this further. So please add it. I don't care how it gets there.
Goes through one of the standing committees.
Yeah, we'll take it through Councillor Cody, can we take it through finance, please?
Yeah, let's. Okay, Councillor Cody does have his hand up, and then Councillor Yankov's been waiting here. Sorry, Councillor Yankov. Councillor Cody, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering, we have a new business section. Is there a way to add it to new business, or what's the sense of having that section at the back of the binder?
If you look at the new business, okay, and new business could be bringing up a issue or an item of interest, but if it's a resolution, again, I go back to section 20 of the procedural bylaw that was passed in 2018, 20.1. The council shall not vote on a motion arising out of an item added to the agenda by a member until a staff report and recommendation is received. So, new business, if the discussion led into a resolution, I have not experienced that, but anyways, that's my understanding. But just 1 second. If that's, is that correct, David or Mr. Kelly?
That is correct, Your Worship.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I guess, you know, we talk about enterprise. Like, we don't really need enterprise to sit there and rotate our fleet for. We had a fleet manager on staff, so if we want to turn the vehicles over that much quicker, we can do that in-house without paying a firm to do that for us. And I'm just wondering, this deal come through the FCM, or the bid come through the FCM. How long ago did that happen?
I don't have the date, but I will get that for you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I'm just curious. Everyone's talking about being such a great deal. If it's such a great deal, you think every other municipality would be jumping up and down trying to jump on board, and I don't see that happening. You know,
It was last year.
Yeah.
So it's last year, and how many municipalities are on board, Councillor Duffy?
Oh, I don't know. I just know because I asked one of the staff members that very question, and that's what he told me. So
okay.
I just leave that to him. Yeah.
Okay. No. So it's been a year, and like I say, it doesn't seem like there's too many municipalities on board with this program, and there's probably a good reason why. I just don't see the big deal. We have 10 councillors here. Councillor Bernard says it came through finance. The chair and vice chair weren't there, and we still have a vote. We're all here tonight. Just, we can have a vote and we can put this to bed. I don't understand what the big deal is.
Deputy Mayor, just on the procedure of it, at our last meeting on this issue, our deputy CAO, and she is online here, she submitted 4 questions to be answered by Public Works. We're waiting for those answers. That's why I find this resolution coming off the floor, and we were all at that meeting when the deputy CAO made those recommendations, and they're in our minutes. They're in the minutes, the 4 questions. So again, I'm in favor and very supportive of local buying, but the process has to follow a procedural manner, and that manner is we have 4 questions that have to be answered, and we have a procedural bylaw under section 20.1 that has to go through the appropriate committee. So, Deputy Mayor, I believe that Councillor Rivard is looking at putting it on the agenda for finance or putting it on the agenda for Public Works. Councillor Yankoff.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things, just to build on what Councillor McCabe said. Yes, Tina had put forward 4 questions, and I do believe we all agreed that we would look to get those answers, those questions answered. The other question that I had that I still haven't yet had answered was that presently in Canada we have 3,573 municipalities, and I was quite curious of how many of those municipalities are using enterprise fleet management. And more importantly, when we talk about the procedural bylaw 20.1 and we talk about procedure and process, and Mr. Hooley will account to this because we've talked about this many times. This came to council without a recommendation from finance, and every single thing that comes to council is supposed to come with a staff recommendation. And Mr. Hooley, I'm sure you can confirm that is proper process, and this did not come with a recommendation from staff. So really, whether this is a good thing or not, I don't know, because unfortunately I wasn't there that night. So perhaps it goes back to finance to come back to council with a proper recommendation, and we just follow process.
Councillor Duffy, again, Councillor Duffy, you were at the meeting, the finance meeting, and it was forwarded on to council. We didn't make the decision, correct?
That's right. Works. It came out of Public Works first with a recommendation to go forward, yes, and then it moved to finance. Like I say, twice. Once being March 31st, and then the second one being June the 9th. The June the 9th, it had a recommendation going forward to City Council, and the recommendation was for appropriate action. That was the recommendation to Council.
Oh, yeah.
So, there was 2 recommendations from 2 different committees, so it's covered.
Councillors, I know, Councillor Bernard, I know but we have 7:36. If we go the 3 hours, we need unanimous consent, and I know some councillors do not want to stay over that time, and he's in the foreground right now, Councillor Duffy, and he's probably going to say, I'm not voting for an extension.
Well, I just want to tell you,
when it starts this foolishness, Your Worship, when it starts railing on this foolishness, don't expect to vote for me to extend beyond 3 hours.
hey, Your Worship, I think
discussion, I'm glad to stay, but not for this crazy.
the other thing I think, Worship, and I'll direct this to Councillor McLeod, but this has been going on so long. You know, everybody knows the vehicles are ordered, right?
Yeah.
And everybody knows. So I don't know why you want to run back and have a meeting, because at the end of the day, the vehicles are ordered, and we'll wait for them to come in. But I mean, you heard the finance manager. I'm not sure what's missing. It's a $220,000 investment for an $885 asset, we're saving on the maintenance bills because we're not keeping trucks that are driving them into the ground, and you end up spending a heck of a lot more money on them than you need to.
It's democracy.
I don't see anything negative. The vehicles are going through the local dealerships. I think you give it the year. You give it the year, and you evaluate it. I mean, we're not. Everybody knows we're not locked into it. Okay. But I just don't know. You're talking about we're going to go and have a meeting. We're going to just cancel the contract when the vehicles are already ordered. We're waiting for them to come in.
We're moving on, guys. We have to move on. Councilor McLeod, I know, but you're going to have another opportunity. We have to go to economic development because
all I'm saying, sir, all I was trying to do, sir, is wrap up my report.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so leaving it that, we will we'll wait to get all the paperwork, the invoices in, and answer the 4 questions that Tina hit. Okay, now, so just one last thing. I just want to give a shout out to the public works staff. They've been hit up pretty darn hard in the last month. It's been a long time since we got 4 storms and 4 weekends. So again, some of them guys are running on fumes. A lot of hours, and I just want to commend all the staff, and not only the public works staff. The police had a big part to play with that. So did water, sewer, Parks and Rec. They all had their part in that. So just hats off to all the city staff for doing such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLeod, and I would agree with you. Now we move on to economic development, tourism, and event management. Councillor Julie McCabe, and I think you have a resolution, Councillor McCabe.
I do have a resolution that I'll be removing myself for when we get to that. The Economic Development, Tourism, and Event Management Committee met on the 19th of January. The Arts Advisory Board met on the 18th of January. The minutes are in your package. As you've indicated, there will be one resolution to discuss. I'm just going to give you a few briefing here. The official voting period for the Winterlode National Ice Carving Championship is now open. We want to get out and maybe support our PEI carvers, Patrick Brunet and Kelly Casely. If you visit the Discover Charlottetown website with the / of Winterlude, it'll take you to a link where you can vote, and the voting's open until the 20th of February. As the mayor already indicated, Canada Games Spirit Day will be on the 17th of February. They're asking everyone to wear green and blue that day. The city will also be celebrating with special Winter Games themed projection on the Upper Plaza at the Confederation Center of the Arts on the 17th and 18th. Lighting at the tower at City Hall, and displaying street banners in the downtown core. The mascot Charlietown will also officially meet, oh goodness, help me with Walkwis, who's the Canada Games mascot. Oh, thanks, Laurel, for the phonetic spelling for that name. During a flag raising ceremony at City Hall on Thursday morning. Jack Frost Winterfest presents Ice City is now underway. Of course, great to get down and check out all the schedule of events right through till March 13th. The Quebec Major Junior Hockey League recently resumed action, and the Charlottetown Islanders will return to the Eastlink Centre for the first time this year on Friday evening. The city will once again be offering free programming on Islander Day. Details can be found on our website, charlottetown.ca /Islander Day. The Greater Charlottetown Area of Commerce President's Excellence Awards have been rescheduled to the 13th of February. The city is a proud partner of this event. We have a number of national events on our books for March, and staff are working closely with CPHO to hopefully find a path forward. Lots of good news coming out from the federal government around restrictions and changes around how we're going to be able to start monitoring. So hopefully things are on the up. Any questions? I'll do my best to answer.
Councillor Duran, you had your hand up there. Councillor Duran?
Thank you, Worship. I just had a concern over the resolution, so I took my hand down.
Okay, so you'll just wait for the resolution. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So, Councillor McCabe,
I'm
can
going to
you...
remove myself, and then Alana or someone, if you could text me whenever you're finished doing the resolution.
Okay, so we do have one resolution, and we'll just wait for Councillor McCabe to remove herself. And Mr. Kelly, can you read it?
Yes, Worship. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Deputy Mayor Cody, that the City of Charlottetown increase the Charlottetown Islanders Hockey Club annual funding by $50,000 for the 2021-2022 season to offset the challenges associated with the operating through the pandemic, and that these funds be transferred from within the current economic development, tourism, and event management operational budgets, and further, that this transaction represents no overall increase to the city's 2021-2022 operational budget. Worship.
Okay, resolution's on the floor. Councillor Duran first, then followed up by Councillor McCabe, and then Councillor... Do you want to speak to it first as Vice Chair, Councillor Yankov? Okay, Councillor Duran, Councillor Duran, Councillor Tweel, and then Councillor Yankov. Councillor Duran.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just have a concern over this. I know we're really under the gun here for funding. I can't understand why we're giving more of taxpayers' money, to this Charlottetown Islanders. It's a private business. I know we all welcome the club. It does great work, keeps the young people playing. I certainly understand that, but there's so many other businesses impacted as well. The restaurants, the other small businesses. I just can't understand how. I know it's not new money. We are taking it from the economic development and tourism event management budget, but I just can't see why we would be given more money to a private business like this, and I can't support this resolution as it is now, unless there's a great explanation for it. So I just asked someone to please explain it to me. Thank you.
And Councillor Yankov, the Vice Chair, are you the Vice Chair, or is Councillor Kevin?
Councillor Ramsey,
I'm not on the committee.
Okay, Councillor Ramsey, you're not. He's gone.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes, I am.
Can you respond to it, sir?
It was just a request. We had the Islanders in at our last economic development meeting, and this is just a transfer from the economic development to the operating of the Islanders. They explained their financials. They showed us their financials. I think you were there at the same time, Your Worship, and Finance Chair was there also. And we're looking at it. It just is for this year, and then we're working on their new agreement starting at the end of this year for the next 3 or 4 years, but it's just a transfer of funds just to help them carry over, because the teams up in Quebec, they all got last year $1.2 million per team. I think Councillor Tweel remembers that comment too, and we tried to find more money for them through ACOA and all that, as Councillor Tweel suggested, but the teams in Atlantic Canada received zero from the province during the pandemic. So I don't know if that helps explain it, but we're just trying to be good corporate citizens, and we know how valuable the team is, because it's great to have a UPEI team, Holland College team, and a Quebec Major Junior team. And I think it's great for the Economic Development Department to have those things, to have people sort of come here.
And
that's just my version of it.
And Mr. Long is there to help out to make any comments to that also, Your Worship.
Yeah, Councillor Long, Councillor Duran, did you have a follow-up, and then either Mr. Long or Councillor Ramsey can answer? Go ahead, Councillor Duran.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I just wondered, I understand we pass a budget. We allot money, and I know this is, I guess if they're having a shortfall of it, I understand, but so is everybody else. I just don't understand us giving more money. I mean, I want them here. They do great work. It just seems that, you keep coming back to us for extra money. We negotiate a contract, we have that in place, and I just don't think it's fair to come back for more. Thank you.
We do give them $100,000 per year, Your Worship, as you know, and Councillor Drong does, and then an extra $7,000 for the training camp. The reason we help pay for the training camp is because the Eastlink Center, they have to rent ice time outside the Eastlink Center in August because that's already booked for Old Home Week and so on and so forth. So, but if they don't spend the $7,000, we only pay whatever they spend, and that's one of the things. And this is just this was just an ask for us, and we as finance thought it's not an issue if the Economic Development Department could find the money within their operational budget, and they could. Thank you.
Wayne, Mr. Long, do you want to add anything to Councillor Ramsey's comments?
I'll just say, Your Worship, I'll echo on Councillor Ramsey's comments that the Islanders have faced challenging times like many during the pandemic. I think it's important to note that the Charlottetown Islanders are the anchor tenant of a city-owned venue, so they're highly valued to that particular venue and operation. The Islanders also bring substantial economic and tourism impact to Charlottetown that we wouldn't have if we didn't have a team here in the community. They also contribute to our efforts as a vibrant sport tourism destination by brand awareness and otherwise. It shows that we have a strong fan base and corporate base, etc. The investors with the team have put in additional dollars throughout the pandemic, and the team has been looking at their business and operational plan, and they felt that it was important for the municipality to align their money more with the provincial government, who is also a partner with respect to the team. And then finally, as Councillor Ramsey indicated, all of the teams that reside in the province of Quebec or are based in the province of Quebec received a $1.4 million contribution from the province of Quebec during the pandemic to maintain their operations. The Atlantic teams have not received those contributions, but municipalities and venues of where they are located and housed have tried to work with them to help them through this period, to see them through this challenging process, so they'll be there on the back end for the community. So that's additional extra information that I could add at this time, Your Worship.
Okay. And could I just add, we're at 7:49, and we have still 2 items left in the agenda. Do you want to keep going with this item? I just need to get a sense, and we'll keep it going. But Councillor Yankoff, I think you were before Councillor Tweel and Councillor McLeod. And you want to go, Councillor Yankoff?
Thank you, Your Worship, and whoever needs to answer this question, whether it's Vice Chair Ramsey or Mr. Long, I certainly concur with what Mr. Long has said in terms of the Islanders and the importance of their presence here in the city. I just have a question on, is this a one-time thing? So I know we contributed $100,000 a year to the team, and so we're increasing it by an additional 50. So that's a big increase. And is that just a one-time thing? And my second thing is, the other major funders of the other levels of government, are they also contributing equal amounts, percentage-wise, as the city would be looking at doing tonight with this resolution? Thank you.
Mr. Long, you'd like to try that?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councillor Yankoff. So the request before Council tonight is a one-time request. However, back to Councillor Ramsey's point, we're coming to the end of a 4-year agreement of which the city has with the Islanders Hockey Club, so we'll be opening up those negotiations and renewal of that contract. So that'll be a discussion beyond the discussion we're having here now. So what we're dealing with tonight is simply the $50,000 additional ask, which is in our current budget through a transfer. And then the second question, the provincial government is, I can't speak for the province, but the Islanders have indicated to us that the provincial government is a strong funding partner of their organization, and are asking the municipality if that we could match the provincial government's contributions with respect to an operation grant in this season. So the province and the city would be at similar levels in terms of financial contribution.
Thank you.
Councillor? Good. Okay. Councillor, no, just one second. I had Councillor McLeod. Councillor Duffy did have his hand up, but Councillor Tweel was there too. Guys, we're really right in the minute time clock here.
I'll pass.
And Your Worship, just to clarify, to extend beyond 10, it needs 2/3 support, Your Worship.
You're sure of that?
As per section 33.1, Your Worship.
Okay. I'm all right to go. Okay. What's that?
I have a quick question for Wayne.
You go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. So the 4-year deal is coming up to an end. How many times have we given a one-time add-on in the 4 years?
This is the only time, Councillor McLeod, that I'm aware of, and I believe I'm pretty confident saying that.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
And, you know, I hate being compared to the province simply because they're a hell of a lot bigger than we are. Like you say, the provinces are funding them much greater. So I have a hard time. We've done our operational budget in public works, and it's going to be scary, guys. So we're in for a very rude awakening here. So we want to make sure when we're opening up this can of worms and giving out money, that we're going to be prepared to give it to other groups. Because I don't think it's money we have. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Tweel, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Bernard. Councillor Tweel.
I know we're talking about a budget transfer, but as a member of the committee, I haven't seen where the money is coming from. Economic Development is meeting tomorrow, 4 o'clock. I wonder if it'd be prudent to defer this till tomorrow so we can exactly see where the money's being transferred from. I'd feel a lot more comfortable. I mean, we all support the Islanders. We know how much it means to the city and to the province, but I feel a lot better just before I vote. I want to make sure I'm making an informed decision, and I want to see where the money's is coming from, what particular line item.
And that's in the council report, Your Worship.
That's in the report.
Yeah, I know it's in the report, but I'd like to discuss it further. So, we're meeting tomorrow. So.
Okay, you get business development 25,000, fee memberships 10,000, natal day 10,000, special initiatives 5,000. Unless you want explanations of where he's going to take it from business development, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, Councillor Bernard. You have to unmute.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I won't be long, because Wayne hit on a lot of the points that I wanted to make. I think we have to remember that, one, these guys went through a pandemic where, they didn't get near the crowds that were allowed in the rink because of the pandemic, because of the health restrictions. Number two, the division that they're in, yes, the Quebec government gave those teams over $1 million. I think Wayne said $1.4 million each. St. John, as we know, the owner there is got deep pockets. These guys, if they had a vote, which they did, but they were outvoted, they had to play. If these guys had an option to not play this year, they would have picked that option. So they get jammed into this. Now, are they going to have operational losses? For sure. But I think the spin-offs, the having a Q team in the Q team of having the spin-offs of having a Q team in Charlottetown, you the hotels, you get your restaurants, you get your gas, you get your sports shops. I don't know what that dollar figure is, but I'm sure it's above $1 million at least, if not 1.5. So I would be in favor of it. It's $50,000. I'm sure that probably doesn't cover all their losses, but I mean, I would be in favor of the resolution myself. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Duffy, are you all ready to go? Can you? You're winding it an hour.
Yeah. Okay. All I wanted to say was they have about 22 to 25 young people from September through to June was cut off. So they have to feed these kids, they have to book them for school and all the other things to go with it. So this is their first ask, so I'd be strongly supporting this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Question, Councillor Ramsey?
No questions called, Your Worship.
No questions called. Okay. All those in favor, please put up your hand. Okay. Councillor McLeod? Councillor... Okay, Councillor Duffy, I think you're frozen there. Councillor Duran, yay. Councillor Deputy Mayor Jason? Are you for or against? What's that?
I'm not in favor.
Okay, okay. So I have a vote of 8-1.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's the end of your report.
Okay, so, and just to, Councillor Duffy, I did find it, section 32, we only need 2/3. So if you want to leave, you can leave.
Well, we only got mine left anyway, Your Worship.
Help finance. Okay. Hey, Kevin.
We're still talking about money for Anders House today.
What's that?
Councillor Ramsey, do you want to go?
We're talking for money for Anders House today.
Okay, we did not meet last month, but we have one resolution. I'll be very quick with it. And Mr. Kelly, if you'd like to read that, or any questions, we'll go from there.
Just want to get any questions about the report.
Yes. If there's any questions, I'll certainly try to answer them, but if not, we have one resolution, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
You have two. You have one from the Deputy Mayor Cody and one from Councillor Tweel. Deputy Mayor Cody? Can you go, Deputy Mayor? Or did you just put up your hand for the vote?
Just my hand for the vote, sorry.
Councillor Tweel, it's your call.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Was this discussed at our last committee meeting?
Oh, no, because we didn't have a meeting.
I know, we haven't met since November, so...
Because we're still working on some items.
Okay, we're still working some else, so... I don't fully understand it, to be honest with you. So maybe one of our senior staff can explain it to me.
That's not a problem, sir. Thank you for your question. Mr. Kelly, would you like to explain this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and Your Worship, the municipalities entered into an agreement with the province of Prince Edward Island on April 1st, 2017. Council of the day for Charlottetown agreed and was the signator in that agreement as well. The province and municipalities have been reviewing the agreement. To this date, there's no new monies that will be distributed, and so they are wanting to extend the current contract for another year, whereby we continue to receive those benefits from the agreement, and we'll be still going through discussion to see how this may alter or change going forward. So this is a one-year extension that's being sent to the original signatories, as in the motion, which is for the City of Charlottetown, the City of Summerside, the Town of Alberton, the Town of Borden, Carleton, the Town of Cornwall, Kensington, O'Leary, Stratford, Surrey, Three Rivers, and Tickney. So they are the original signatories, and again, we're asking for a one-year extension, and we'll be coming back after we complete our discussion with the province for next year.
We're looking for more money, Councillor Tweel, but they're staying fast right now for this year until March 31st, 2023. Am I correct, Mr. Kelly?
They are holding off for any additional increases to this agreement, but FPIM have asked for some other opportunities to be able to get increased cash flow from other sources, and we wait to have that response from the province.
Right on.
Okay. Yep. Councillor Tweel, good. Okay. Do we have a question?
No questions called.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Councillor Duran?
Aye.
Raising your hand. Okay. And Councillor Tweel? Councillor Duffy, did you leave us? I think you did.
Bedtime.
Okay, 9-0. That's it, Councillor Ramsey?
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, sir. And I have Finance, Audit, and Tendering, Deputy Mayor Jason Cody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our committee met. The reports in your package. I do have one resolution for council to consider, and if there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Any questions? Councillor Tweel?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cody, for your report. Deputy Mayor Cody, I'm not going to get into much of a deliberation tonight about the procurement policy for the city of Charlottetown. Could you please put this procurement policy on your committee's agenda for the next meeting? And could you spell out what exactly means to go to the open tender process, where there truly is an equal level playing field for all businesses in this city that are paying taxes, paying expenses, hiring people, making a tremendous contribution to our community. Not just the spirit of the policy, but what it actually means and what the expectation actually means to members of the business community. We just talked about supporting one particular business, $50,000, and that's all well and good. We have other businesses too that I believe we should be giving consideration to when it comes to being competitive and having an open level playing field. So please, Deputy Mayor, just put the procurement policy on your committee's next agenda. I would like to know what it actually means in light of the fact when we didn't follow it.
I apologize for the interruption, Your Worship, but we do need to move by motion to extend beyond 8 o'clock. It is now beyond 8, and you need to extend to have council concur by 2/3 vote, Your Worship.
And we have one resolution left. We can get it going.
It still needs to be passed, Your Worship, to make it official, Your Worship.
The gatekeeper.
I'll move it.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Bernard, seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Favor.
In favor.
Two-thirds.
Favor.
Okay.
Okay, Your Worship,
Resolution.
the motion.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Hold on. Councillor McLeod, you can follow. Councillor Tweel, what's your final point?
so Councillor Cody, would you please put that on your committee's next agenda? I have serious reservations about how we're conducting, the open tender. We talk about being open and accountable, and having, an opportunity to give businesses, that right to be able to compete for business to the city's corporation in which they're paying taxes to keep the city going. So we need that. I need that information, and I need it spelled out in crystal clear fashion, because you know what? We just gave, regardless of how you feel about it or how you support it, Enterprise PEI, but we've given them a monopoly.
Okay. Anyways, you got the question. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Cody, do you have his question?
Yes, we'll add it to the agenda.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Councillor McLeod, do you have a question?
Yes, just a point of order. I would like to correct Councillor Tweel's comment that staff did follow process. Again, we're going down a path where we're accusing things that didn't happen. So just want to make sure staff did follow process. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
Your Worship.
No. Mr. Kelly, read
Yes,
the
Worship.
resolution.
Worship, moved by Deputy
Didn't
Mayor
go to open
Cody.
tender.
Mr. Kelly, please read the resolution.
Yes, Your Worship, moved by Deputy Mayor Cody, second by Councillor Bernard, that the City of Charlottetown agree to a land swap of equal portion of the city property located at PID 1050616 with the landowners of the property located at PID 948208 as indicated on the attached Royalty West Subdivision Survey Plan, and that this will be included in the Planning Department's development agreement, Your Worship.
Deputy, do you want to add any comment to that?
No, I don't think so, Your Worship. The report is attached there to the resolution, so
Pretty self-explanatory, right?
I think so, unless somebody has a question.
It's only a land swap, Your Worship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, question?
Questions called, sir.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And Councillor Bob Duran, you're raising your hand? Okay, 10-0. Okay. We have a resolution to new business. No, motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.